My entitled aunt humiliates me at a family reunion after I refuse to give her money for her birthday. So I teach her a lesson by getting some revenge, where I booked her a flight to go on a vacation that she was never going to be able to go on in the first place. Because 2 days before the flight was going to take place, I decided to cancel the ticket that I bought her, causing my aunt to have a meltdown in a way I have never seen in my life. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so this happened about 2 weeks ago. My family had a reunion at my aunt's house because it was also her birthday too. We don't all live in the same city, so these reunions are rare. For reference, I'm 28 years old and I work as a head manager at a restaurant. My cousins are also working and had just returned from a business trip. My aunt has no children, so she treats her nieces and nephews like her family kids. During the reunion, my aunt gave a little speech and then asked us to play a game. She said she wanted her nieces to show their love by giving her the best birthday gift. Well, my two cousins immediately gave her money and she was thrilled. Then she looked at me expecting me to give something too, but you know what? I didn't participate because I'm strict with my money. It is my hard-earned income and I don't feel responsible for giving her anything, especially since she never helps us financially when we need it. And you know what? That is when she crossed the line. She openly insulted me in front of the family, saying that even though I'm the oldest niece and a manager, I'm somehow the poorest niece that she has. She mocked our family and acted like she had the right to judge how we live. So this is where I decided to get some petty revenge. I decided to book her a vacation flight as a surprise, scheduled for a week after her birthday, and I paid for it immediately. I even emailed her the receipt and the itinerary. And when I did this, she was completely shocked and suddenly her attitude changed. She was happy again and took back all the negative things that she had said. Despite that, I was still angry, and I asked my mom to go home immediately after the reunion. Well, 2 days before her flight, I canceled it. On the day she was supposed to leave, she called me non-stop, but I ignored her and asked my mom not to answer the phone either. But then she showed up at our house loudly knocking and demanding that she talk to me. She then accused me of scamming her and said she was going to report me to the police because I canceled a flight that I booked and paid for. She also demanded that my mom pay for the canceled flight and the accommodations and all the inconvenience that I supposedly caused. But you know what? I planned everything because of how she treated me during the reunion. And honestly, I have no regrets at all. She absolutely deserved it because entitled people like her deserve to be taught a lesson. Oh man, this is really funny. I love this so much. You not only got back at this lady, but you humiliated her in the process. Because this lady for sure probably told the whole family like, oh my gosh, I got this great vacation. My niece threw me a curveball and gave this to me. I'm so excited. And then on the day of, you're like, actually, no, I'm not gonna let you go on this flight. See ya. And you just snatched it away from her and probably shocked her in the same way that she shocked you at that reunion. And by the way, like seriously, what's going on here? Did she plan for the reunion and her birthday to be on the same day? Because it kind of seems like that's exactly what happened. And if she did do that, it's probably because she wanted money or gifts from people, and if they didn't give her anything, she would call them poor. And that's just so ridiculous, man. So honestly, good for you for putting her in her place and shutting her down, because her attitude was completely uncalled for. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled cousins demand that I give them free accommodations anytime they visit me in London. But thankfully, I have a fiancé who shuts that crap down every single time, especially after the way they took advantage of us the last time they visited. Here's what happened. To start things out, I live in London, and I have family, specifically my cousins, who expect free accommodation to visit. Before my fiancé moved in, I would cave and stay at his place for a couple of days and let them have my apartment. We enjoyed being together at his place for the whole weekend, so it didn't really feel like a huge inconvenience. But he told me that I should be firmer with them. Well, the last time it was my cousin and her 15-year-old son. The night they arrived, I paid for takeout to be delivered for dinner. There was no real thank you, and then the next day, half the leftovers had been eaten. I ate the other half, and then I got evil looks from my cousin who hissed at me and said, well, I was planning to have that for lunch. We then went out for dinner on their last night, and when the bill came, I pushed it towards my cousin thinking that she might be a good sport and cover it. But no, of course that didn't happen. Instead, the iPhone calculator came out just to add up everything that she and her son had, and that's exactly what she paid for, with me getting the rest, plus the entire service charge. I had also bought some supplies in advance thinking that I could use whatever's leftovers for the following week, but no, they took them all home with them. Half-eaten bags of chips, bananas that probably bruised in their bags, half a bottle of milk, open packets of cookies, muffins, pastries, and half-empty boxes of breakfast cereal. Well, after my fiance moved in, my cousin messaged us asking to stay again. Now, as it is a one-bedroom apartment, I said that we don't have the space and we don't have my fiance's place to stay at anymore. She then came up with this elaborate plan of sleeping on the sofa and moving all my furniture out of the way to fit an airbed for her son in the living room. But you know what? My fiance replied with a list of nearby hotels. My sister then came to visit earlier this summer, but her Airbnb fell through at the last minute, so I offered her the sofa for the weekend. She was a delight to have around, bought me breakfast, and left some beautiful flowers in a vase and a thank you card when she left. After that happened a few days later, a message landed from my cousin asking if she and her kid could stay, given the fact that I had let my sister stay earlier. Well, once again, my fiance replied with a list of nearby hotels. My cousin then asked if she could stay on the sofa if it's just her and she left her kid at home. And guess what my fiance replied with? That's right, if you guessed the same list of hotels, you would be correct. And honestly, I wish I was as firm as him sometimes because this lady absolutely needs this. Okay, in my opinion, the second anybody takes advantage of me like that, that's the second they're gonna go on a list of people that I will never trust ever again with anything. They're just gonna take all my food, my money, and they're never gonna be gracious in the same way that I'm giving to them. So yeah, this is wonderful to see, and I'm glad you have a fiance who can back you up in this, because your cousin sounds incredibly entitled. Am I the jerk for bringing my own food to a family get-together? All because I literally can't eat gluten. Because right now, my mother-in-law, I think, is very offended that I'm not eating her food, despite the fact that she knows I'm allergic to gluten, and I now just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so 2 years ago, I discovered that gluten was one of my migraine triggers, and so is sugar. The past 2 years has been a struggle to adapt my new eating habits, just so I don't get migraines along with the stress of all of this. Now, for reference, I have a chronic migraine, and it's been a nightmare, and it's been like that for the past 15 years. I've tried so many prescriptions from my doctor. I got scanned in my brain for blood clots, tried everything to ease my pain, from massages to cold baths to anything that you can possibly think of, but literally nothing ever really helped. But then 2 years ago, I went to a retreat weekend. The food they served were gluten and lactose free. And you know what? I felt the very best I've ever been in a long time. So when I got home, I studied recipes for gluten-free food. I went to my doctor and I took a test to see if I was allergic to the gluten, but it showed negative. And that's when she told me that gluten could be one of my triggers to a migraine. So I searched for food with no gluten and I began the new lifestyle. I also began to bring my own food to the family gatherings at birthdays and holidays. Well, my mother-in-law got really offended and asked if I didn't like her food. But of course not. I will admit, the first year was a struggle to adapt, and I did give in sometimes when I was offered a delicious cake with gluten and sugar. I mean, what can I say? I'm only human, and I've been used to regular food for like 40 years. My husband and I have many times explained to our families what gluten does to me, but his family doesn't really get it. So I bring my own food, and sometimes it's like 10 times more delicious than whatever they're eating. And I've even had family members try to sneak a taste just to see what I'm cooking. Well, the last time we got to my father-in-law's birthday party, and I saw that they had warmed up some gluten-free buns, and I got so happy. But my mother-in-law was quick to say that they were not for me. She said it was for our niece, and that she had found out that she was allergic to gluten. She then said, oh, if she eats gluten, it can get so bad that she just can't even have children. Well, luckily I had my own gluten-free bread with me, so I said to her, okay, I'll just eat some of my own bread then. Well, when I said this, my mother-in-law said that she'll warm some buns up for me, and she said this with an irritated gesture. Well, my husband heard all of it and he defended me. I mean, he was so mad, and I was sad that they didn't take me very seriously for my health. So seriously, am I the jerk for bringing my own food to family gatherings? Don't get me wrong, I do love my in-laws, and they love me as well, but sometimes they can really blindside me. What should I do? Okay, your mother-in-law is an idiot because seriously, if a piece of cake is the one thing that can knock you out and make you have a migraine for like a year at a time, then yeah, you should absolutely bring your own food and like eat what you have. And it's so stupid that she's trying to be like, oh, this isn't for you. This is for the child that can eat gluten, not the adult. And it leads me to believe that she probably thinks you're faking it, that you just don't want to eat her food or some crap like that. And that, in my opinion, is way worse and so much more annoying. Like, how entitled can you possibly be? Like, get a grip, lady. It's not all about you. So no, you're not the jerk for bringing your own food, because that is literally the most like logical thing in this situation. And the fact that the mother-in-law is choosing to get offended over this, in my opinion, is just so weird. Am I the jerk for wanting an explanation for my sister's engagement after she literally had a blowout over the emotional mistreatment and manipulation that she was experiencing? Because right now I feel very confused and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 27-year-old female and I have a 33-year-old sister who I'm very close with. We hang out often and talk about everything and have been been like that for at least 15 years, and anyone with siblings knows that you don't always get along when you're younger. Anyways, my sister has been in emotionally and physically unhealthy relationships in the past, and my husband and I have done all that we can at any point to be there and help with the kids or any part of life needing assistance. She is my rock, and so we've always tried to be hers in return. Recently, she has been dating this man and wanted to get married and have kids immediately, and we've talked about this and how it may be toxic trying to push a man into something he's not ready for when he's literally showing signs that he's not ready for that. Well, long story short, after a year of her pushing, he hasn't proposed and has slowly started to show signs of emotional mistreatment and manipulation. And this is her words, not mine. Like, I simply don't know him well outside of family events. She came to stay with us for a week because she didn't feel comfortable in her own house due to his yelling and arguing. At the end of the week of crying, drinking, and long talks, she decided to kick him out and finally end things. My husband and I told her how proud of her we were for putting her and her kids first and that we would be there for her however she needed it. Well, cut to 4 days later, and my sister sends a video message to the family group chat announcing that they're engaged and getting married in a month and a half. My family replies positively, although I know everyone is wary of this. I then text her separately saying that I'm disappointed in this choice. Well, cue her sending an invite to the small elopement with a letter detailing how I have to respect her husband and her choices to be in her life still. I then texted her saying, hey, I was hoping we could talk about what's going on. Whether it's just you and me or all of us at Dad's place sometime, it's up to you. We move this week, but next week should be easier if that works for you. To which she replied by saying, if you're referring to my engagement, I'm not interested in discussing or defending my choices. You're welcome to join us at the family dinner if you'd like to celebrate with me. So seriously, am I the jerk for feeling like I do somewhat deserve a conversation about how this happened? I'm seriously concerned that he's emotionally manipulating her and used an engagement to pull her back in when she cut the cord. I know everyone says you're never entitled to information into others' private lives, so I feel I might be a jerk here, but at the same time, the amount of times we've supported her through major fights and the big blowout a few days before the proposal makes me feel like it's fair for me to ask about how she's sure about this and how she can be so sure that this isn't further manipulation. What should I do? Okay, I've got to be completely honest with you, and this probably is not what you want to hear, but if I was in your shoes, I would 100% stay out of it. You cannot control your sister, and honestly, it sounds like your sister's making a dumb choice. And yeah, it really sucks because clearly you care about your sister. You've been there for her, you refer to her as your rock, and you've done everything you can to try and help her out as best as you can. But if she's too stupid to see that this guy is nothing but trouble, then that's on her and nobody else. She's made up her mind and that's that. But I will say, in the future, when this finally blows up on her, she had better not come to you asking for any kind of advice, because if she does, you just hand her that letter back and be like, I'm sorry, but I was just respecting your decisions. Because seriously, if this all falls apart, it's on her and nobody else. My partner's mother is constantly trying to ruin the activities that we plan, as she always tries to become the center of attention by always being such a problem regarding anything that we've planned. And now, after she ruined our kayaking trip, I'm honestly at the end of my patience, swearing to my husband and my brother-in-law that she simply is not going to be invited to anything else we do in the future. Here's what happened. Okay, so my partner's brother's wife, so I guess my sister-in-law, had a birthday this last week. So we had a full day of kayaking, lunch, window shopping, and dessert planned. Her husband and I worked an obnoxious amount of hours at different jobs, so coordinating for both of us to get the second half of the day off to make this happen was a feat in and of itself. I rushed home after work, I got the kayaks loaded up and all the extra gear loaded into the truck, and I asked my partner if we were heading straight there now to meet them. And it's here that he said his mother was coming here to carpool with us. Now, it's really important to note that almost every single outing with her, some kind of issue always comes up. So I was already voicing my annoyance that we were carpooling and she couldn't just drive herself. Well, she shows up while I'm in the kitchen, and when I come to the living room, she's not even remotely dressed for any outdoor activity, let alone kayaking. I then asked if she needed to get changed for the trip, and she said she did not think that she was going to go kayaking. And all I could think to myself was like, wait, what? What's going on right now? Now, I didn't press the issue at all. I mean, this is not my fight, and while I didn't organize the trip, I'll just let my brother-in-law sort it out. We drive 45 minutes to get to the park and launch area, and we see my brother-in-law already has the 2 kayaks for them out, and my mother-in-law's inflated one ready to go. I asked if he already paid for the day pass, and he said he didn't see the envelope, so I walked to the nearby booth to grab them and came back to the truck to find a pen to fill them out. As soon as I opened the door, my partner is leaning in the passenger side shaking his head. I asked what was wrong, and he said the kayaking part of the trip is off. His mom told my brother-in-law that she did not want to kayak and that she would just watch instead. And this is literally a river excursion. We're not just doing laps in a lake. Well, this was the first time I'd ever seen my brother-in-law visibly angry in a 11 years when he asked her why she even bothered to come along or agreed to come when she had the chance to back out at my house before we left to go here, but she just said that she would sit on the sidelines and just watch. Well, we deflated her kayak, threw the two in the back of his truck, and said, okay, let's just go get lunch. Well, the entire way there, she was completely silent, didn't say a word when we got seated at the restaurant until the waiter asked for drinks. When it came time to order food, she said to start at the other side of the table, and when they got back to her, she was not hungry and then just sulked on her phone on Facebook the entire hour that we were there. When we finished, she beelined out of the restaurant and sat on the flower bed stoop at the corner waiting for us. We didn't want to ruin the entire birthday outing, so when we got to where she was, we said we're gonna go into a few shops and try to get some ice cream from a place that's just a few doors down. She then said, well, that's fine, but I'm just gonna stay here until you're done. And it's like, what is going on right now? I then asked her if she wanted my keys to go sit in the truck, but she said to me, no, it's such a nice day out. And it's like, are you kidding me right now? Well, we were gone for another 45 or so minutes and came back to her still sulking on the stoop. Now, at this point, I offered my brother-in-law $100 if he would simply just drive her home because I didn't want to be in that awkward position for another hour, but unfortunately, he declined. And trust me, this is like the third event in a row, with the prior two just being audience-type shows that she has spoken poorly about during and after the fact. We've all vowed that this will never happen again, but I'm honestly suspicious if this actually will follow through, because this is the third time this has happened, and I can absolutely see this happening again. Okay, imagine going on a river outing and knowing that everybody's gonna go kayaking just to show up and be like, oh, I'm just gonna watch, it's not a big deal. And then in the same day be like, oh, I don't want to go inside, it's such a nice day outside. I'm gonna sit on this stoop by these flowers, have a good time getting ice cream. Like, I don't know about you, but I would go nuts if someone did that to me. Seriously, that's so obnoxious it's not even funny. So yes, I hope for the sake of you and the rest of your family's sanity, this lady is not involved in any other future trips. Because look at the way she acted. She literally ruined the plans for no good reason. Like, you can't tell me she didn't know you guys were going kayaking, or at least doing something that was like more outdoors in some way. Like, why else would they have an inflatable kayak for her specifically, if not for her to go on the river with everybody else? Meanwhile, the original poster describes them as looking like Stevie Nicks with a shawl and everything on. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? You're intentionally derailing this entire trip for some stupid reason that honestly just doesn't make any sense. Like, if I drove an hour out to a river and then I said, okay, let's go kayaking, and then someone in the trip was like, no, I don't want to do that, I'm just gonna watch, I would be so upset it would not even be funny. So yeah, this really does suck, and hopefully she never comes back for any trips in the future. My entitled friend literally ruined my night out at a ballpark, as he was so obnoxiously loud about how much he was disliking this experience. And now I'm incredibly upset with him, but I'm not sure if I'm overreacting here, because this situation is incredibly frustrating. Here's how it all went down. I'm a 20-year-old female, and I went out with my 20-year-old male best friend last night. Now, I'm a huge baseball fan, and I love going to games, so I decided to bring him along with me. I paid for everything, including two $40 tickets and the $40 parking pass, because this night out was my idea. All week leading up to last night, he kept telling me how excited he was and how he had not been to a game in years, and we were laughing and chatting the entire 30-minute ride to the ballpark. Well, once we were there, he started acting up. He took one look at the crowd and told me how this was his personal nightmare, which I can understand because baseball on Saturdays can be really packed. He started attempting to joke with people around us, calling them lame for coming there, and asking if anyone had real lives outside of sports fans, which really pissed a lot of them off. While walking to our seat in the back, he kept complaining about how much he hated it and how he doesn't even know baseball that well. And when we sat down, he immediately started telling me to never bring him there again and how he was in his own personal nightmare. The entire game, he was a total jerk. He made fun of all the player names as loud as he could, including our home team. He sang obnoxiously because he was bored, and he was manspreading along our bench seats, knowing that I was squished, along with a family next to us who weren't happy to be squished either. Even when people, including myself, jumped for joy at home runs, he sat down and tapped his foot like he couldn't wait to leave. Once it hit the top of the ninth, I wanted to see the final strikeout and our win, but he pushed me out of the park. We then got in the car and he told me, I can't lie, I had absolutely no fun whatsoever. I would have rather been anywhere else but here. I then gave him the silent treatment on the drive back, to which he explained he was overwhelmed and overstimulated from work and all this other things, and the ballpark just wasn't the right place for him. So I really need to know, am I overreacting about being upset about this? I understand being overstimulated, but I was looking forward to a fun night, especially since he kept saying how excited he was too. His behavior was unacceptable to me, and he ruined mine and other people's game day experiences. What should I do? Okay, first of all, I really hope this guy is your former best friend because he is an awful person. Seriously, you literally treated him to a night out. You paid for his tickets and you paid for parking. You quite literally were sharing something about your life with him that's very important to you. And instead of just playing along and being like a reasonable human being, even if he was like not enjoying himself, this guy decided to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be miserable and I'm gonna let everybody know how miserable I really am. Like, I can't imagine being that guy sitting in the back and being like, oh, this sucks. Those players are stupid. Everybody around me is so dumb. I'm in my own personal nightmare. Like, dude, what are you doing? No one's impressed by how much you dislike this game. And if you really hate it that much, then leave. Why even show up in the first place? This guy wasn't overstimulated, by the way. I think that's a total cop-out. I think that's him trying to backpedal and be like, oh, wait, I think I screwed things up. And I honestly think there might be some angle where he actually like really likes you in some kind of way. And he was trying to act cool by being like, I don't even like it here. This is like nothing for me. I'm suffering so much and I just hate this. You know, that kind of weird, like cocky attitude of like, oh, whatever, I can't have fun anywhere. I'm too tough for this. That kind of crap is probably what he was attempting to do, but it came off as super obnoxious. Because like, dude, if you don't like it, at least stay quiet and sit on your phone. Don't then go around and ruin everybody else's experience all because you're having a bad time. So no, I don't think you're the jerk and I don't think you overreacted at all. And in my opinion, I think it's time to find better friends because this guy absolutely sucks.
I work in a car dealership and a spoiled brat and her father came into my store and demanded her father to buy her a brand new BMW as her very first car. When things didn't go her way, she exploded, screaming and running in there, thinking that it would help her get the BMW, but it didn't. It backfired and blew up in her face worse than she expected. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. This is a tale from retail and auto sales. The awesome dad is played by Robert Downey Jr., the spoiled brat is played by Julia Childs, and I am played by John Cho. We now join our hero as he attempts to smash his head into the desk, sell the spoiled brat a vehicle. As I'm standing next to a used 2012 BMW 328xi Coupe, I say, so as you can see, this is going to be the best fit for your budget and your needs, and not to mention some of the high-end features you were looking for. The spoiled brat says,
oh, Daddy, I don't want a used car. I only get new cars.
The dad, giving me an exasperated look, says, sweetie, I don't know what your mom told you, but I'm not buying you a new car. Besides, you don't get any cars. This is your first one. The spoiled brat, now whining, says,
but Suzanne got a brand new Mercedes for her graduation.
I stared at her, mentally banging my head against the glass of the BMW. I imagined it shattering and me dying in the process. But what I said was, yes, but your dad told me that he has a certain budget to deal with. This is a very nice car with less than 20,000 miles on it. It runs and drives like new. I turned to the dad and said, wow, that sounded cliche. I apologize. The dad, laughing, responded saying, sure was, boyo, but I think I'll take it despite your cliched outburst. We headed inside while the spoiled brat tapped away angrily on her phone. Insert the boring negotiation montage here that ended up concluding with the dad saying, well, I think that does it. I think we have a deal. Thank you. In that moment, the spoiled brat cut him off, annoyed, and said,
are you freaking serious, Daddy? I am not driving some used car. Even Miranda, the poor girl, got a new Toyota.
The dad then angrily said, I am not buying a new car. Maybe you can ask your mom to do that. Oh wait, she would rather spend her money on a vacation to Italy and not take her daughter. The spoiled brat launches into a tirade of cursing, screaming, and generally throwing a tantrum. The dad stands up calmly, shakes my hand, and apologizes. Well, boyo, it looks like my daughter's got a lot to learn about appreciating free things. Maybe her friends will let her ride on the new cars because she will be taking the bus, and she'll need to get a job now to pay for that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Daddy. I want the car now.
It's too late, spoiled daughter. You dug yourself into a hole. Better ask your mom in 2 weeks when she gets back from Italy. The spoiled brat proceeded to run outside crying while her dad shook my hand. Oddly, I felt something crinkle into my palm and I looked down to find that he shoved a $100 bill into my hand. That's for wasting your time and costing you money. But that spoiled girl ain't getting a car from me. Let her stepfather get her one. Thanks, I definitely appreciate it, and best of luck. With that, he walked out and got into his car and they both took off again. Not 2 weeks weeks later, the spoiled brat came back and was driving a broken down Honda. It turns out that that is the car that her new dad got her. Paid a whopping $500 for it and it needed service. She didn't even look at me as she walked in. The score came out to awesome dad, 1 million points, the spoiled brat, 1 hefty repair bill. So was I the jerk for not stepping in? When the spoiled brat says, even Miranda the poor girl got a new Toyota, that just shows how she thinks about others around her. She just classifies her entire personality, this girl Miranda, as being the poor girl. If you're poor, you don't have any other defining attributes other than being poor. That's a pretty sad perspective to have. And what kid thinks it's normal to get a brand new BMW coupe as their very first car? I mean, even in rich families, is that a normal thing to just say, hey daddy, give me the BMW please? I mean, I guess he actually was gonna still buy her a BMW, just not a new one. 20,000 miles is nothing on it. I'm guessing for some reason the girl just wants to be able to say that it was a new BMW when really there's no functional difference, I'm sure, between this and a brand new BMW, unless you wanted the look of a specific car. But in the end, her acting like this totally blew up in her face because instead of getting the BMW coupe with 20,000 miles on it, she ended up getting the $500 Honda that I'm sure probably has over 100,000 miles on it. If you've ever met somebody spoiled like this in your life, let me know down below in the comments, or if you have a full-on story, you can submit the story via the link down below in the description. But jerk or not a jerk, and why? My revenge story almost killed a man. About 3 years ago, I was working in a pretty big factory. They hired through 5 different temp services, so the place was pretty much like a revolving door. People came and left without any warning. Sometimes it was just hard to find a familiar face. So when someone started stealing my lunches, everyone became a suspect. After falling victim to the lunchbox bandit for a week straight, I'm talking about 6 12-hour days with no lunch. Needless to say, the frustration spawned several evil plans, but I felt the Carolina Reaper would give me the fastest and most effective results. All I know was people were gonna think twice before stealing lunches. I spent all night making the best steak fajitas for lunch the next day. I finally minced the Reaper peppers into a nice pico de gallo and topped my devil fajitas off. I carefully placed my fajitas into a Tupperware bowl, garnished them with cilantro and limes, then covered them with a clear lid to display their beauty. The next morning, about an hour after I placed them in the fridge, a woman started screaming for help. I ran to the lunchroom to find the lunchbox bandit lying on the floor gasping for air. The Reaper peppers triggered an asthma attack and he had to be rushed to the hospital. He never said anything and neither did I until now. Was I the jerk for putting Carolina Reaper peppers into my lunch to teach the lunchbox bandit a lesson? There's not many things that will piss somebody off faster than eating their lunch when they won't have any other alternate options. This guy is working 6 12-hour days in a row with no lunch. I think that's bound to make anyone a little bit loopy. I don't know if he knew that putting the Carolina Reapers in the food could possibly give someone an asthma attack, but those things can be pretty dangerous. I'm guessing he probably just thought it was a really spicy thing and he would find out who the lunchbox bandit was because they were running around trying to find water or something to make it less spicy in their mouth. But he probably just put so much of it that that's what led to the guy having an asthma attack. If someone was stealing your food, what would you do? Let me know down below in jerk or not a jerk and why. This next story is actually in response to the Carolina Reaper story. This is how a booze bandit at work got caught and ended up drinking pee. There used to be a lot of drinking in auto factories. Long hours and hard work made people want to escape by getting and staying sloshed at work. I retired not too long ago, and I've got to tell you, the kids nowadays are not near as bad as the people I worked with 40 years ago. People used to hide their drink anywhere, but not in their lockers. If it was found in your locker, you could be fired. Once in a while, a slime ball would find a drink and gulp it down. If it only happened once in a while, pilferage was overlooked, but some dingleberry decided to look for other people's drink and steal it on a regular basis. This went on for far too long. Then the person probably responsible was found out. He was the one that turned white as a sheet and had to leave the lunch table after one of the guys told his fellow employees of having reached the end of his patience and of having filled a third of his bottle with urine, hiding it and finding it empty. Now, to be fair, maybe the guy just had a weak stomach and it hadn't been the booze bandit after all. He was a known lush and often not honest, so maybe. Also, the regular unauthorized booze withdrawals stopped after that. That was vicious. This might be the only thing that people would be more upset about losing at work than their lunch, especially if they've just been perpetually sloshed for years at a time at work and then suddenly somebody takes their drink. The OP here makes it sound like maybe it wasn't the same guy, but the fact that they stopped having their drinks taken after this situation happened makes it seem like it's pretty clear that they found the booze bandit. And this is like some sort of adult Easter egg hunt. They have these flasks hidden all over an auto factory because drinking on the job is fine as long as it's not in your locker, as if that makes sense. Doing it is no problem as long as it's inconvenient to do it. Maybe the management knew it was going to happen anyway and this is just their way of slowing it down. But let me know, do you think peeing in the bottle was going too far or do you think it was justified? And jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for refusing to let an artist whose designs I use promote their work on my page? So I'm in the business of selling custom and esoteric t-shirts online through my website and through my Instagram page. I have a weird rule though. I personally hate having names on my clothing, so I don't sign my name on any of the designs because I think the clothes shouldn't be an advertising tool since they're not my property anymore. It's fine because I do most of the artwork myself, but I was slammed with orders a couple months back, so I couldn't have time to work on more original designs since I had a lot of custom work to do. I decided to buy the design so that I could relieve some of the burden. I found a young artist whose designs I liked and told her the kind of designs and drawings that I wanted from her. I told her about my rule and that she couldn't sign her designs and if she was okay with it. I told her I would be purchasing these designs, not licensing from her, and that they'd be my property from then on. I offered to pay a premium as well. I told her if it was okay, if she didn't want to do it and I could find somebody else. So it's been all good and the t-shirts with her designs have been selling quite well. I haven't released all of them yet and I released them batch by batch. Under my most recent batch of photos that I uploaded, I found her commenting saying that she designed this t-shirt and to check out her page where she's selling more of these designs and has started taking customers' orders for tees. I deleted the comments, contacted her, and told her that she should not be commenting on my page since these weren't even her designs anymore and that I had purchased them from her. She got mad and told me she still did the design and had the right to promote herself using them. I told her to stop and that I would be suing her if I found her claiming to own these designs in the future. We have a contract. She's basically promoting herself using my business and she's a direct competitor, but quite a small scale. Since people seem concerned about the age, she's 23 years old and I'm 28 years old. So I think I'm right, but am I the jerk? I can see why the OP would be frustrated here, and I can also see why the young artist would want people to know that she was the one who designed these things. This is one of those situations where it would have helped to have this conversation before going into this sort of agreement with someone, and it's also hard to know if he's already trying to tell people that he is the creator of these, because if that's the case, then that's just not true. But if you already agreed to credit her and he is crediting her, then yeah, he's probably going to be frustrated that she's doing this. There's a couple crucial pieces of information that are missing here to really know where this all lands. I mean, he does say that she's basically trying to recruit people that are commenting on these designs to her own thing, which he describes as being a direct competitor. Another question to ask here is, how much was he directing her to make these designs in the first place? Did he already have the idea and he told her what he wanted and then she just brought that to life? Because that is also a very different situation than just saying, make a cool design from scratch, from nothing. Because if that's what she did, then she really did design this thing through and through. So with the information we have, let me know how you see this down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for telling the truth and exposing a web of lies my wife spun? My wife has been lying a lot lately. She is overly conscious of people's feelings and she uses white lies to shift the blame on others to lessen the blow of a situation, always to her benefit. She will find herself in situations where she wants to back out of weekend plans with her friends or explain why she did something seemingly rude, etc. But she always blames me. My husband doesn't want me to leave this weekend. Sorry, he's such a jerk. Or, I only screenshotted this conversation we had because my husband told me that he wanted to see it. Sure, I can handle someone confronting me about that stuff far better than she can. She has high anxiety when it comes to confrontation, but I'm really sick of being her scapegoat and letting people think that I am a selfish jerk. I was watching our kids this weekend while my wife hosted a bachelorette trip for her friend at my wife's aunt's lake house. Last night, my wife calls and says I can come over with the kids, rather than wait till early this morning like planned. I get to the lake house and the girls are all still out at a bar somewhere, so I let myself in and put the kids to bed. My wife's aunt texts her after seeing me on her security camera and tells her she is upset that I was there. That's weird to me because she and I get along very well, and I'm even renting a house from her. She has really high anxiety, but she manages it most of the time. She then texts me this morning and begins yelling at me about how I had no right to invite myself over and that I'm a bad father. Naturally, I was shocked and asked her what she meant. It turns out that my wife texted her saying that she didn't know I was coming and that I'm an incompetent father and she had to help me because I didn't know how to watch my own kids. I told her that that was not true and that my wife invited me to come because she knew it was closer to my work and I could sleep in rather than getting up early to bring the kids. I, of course, confronted my wife about why she would lie about me and say things like that about me. She then gets mad and says she was doing damage control on the situation and that it's far better if her aunt is mad at me than her. So now we're fighting because I, of course, don't appreciate being put in that situation, but my wife thinks it was a necessary sacrifice to keep her aunt happy with her. So am I the jerk for telling the truth and exposing a web of lies that my wife spun? This is awful. How deep does this go? The wife just casually makes these lies, which are much bigger than white lies, by the way, to paint her husband in such a horrible light when it's not even true in order to save herself and keep her own relationships healthy. Who would want to be with somebody who habitually does that to them? In one of the responses, one section says, it has already gone to the point where she is way past believing her own lies and the foundation is set where everyone in your mutual support network is against you. And how can you blame her family for being so ferociously against you when it's been established that you are consistently behaving like a monster for months now? You could literally be one bad panic lie away from losing your kids or getting arrested for abuse. That is a very accurate explanation of the danger that he's in, because who knows when the day will come when she just panics and just says something that's totally out there and people believe it to be true about this husband. He really could lose his kids. So if this was you and you were married to this person, how would you handle this? Where do you even begin having this conversation? Let me know down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for letting my neighbor pack my lunch for me? My wife used to pack lunch for me, but I noticed a while back that she stopped making lunches like she used to. Before, she would try and get creative with it, take her time, try new recipes, put a little special touch here and there, etc. Then I felt like it just became, okay, this is what the kids are having, I'll just make an extra one of that and give it to him. I would then make my own lunch, but for one, it's not the same as when she makes it though. And two, I work in construction, so by the time I come home, all I want to do is hit the sheets, and all the places to get lunch near the construction site are expensive, so I'd rather just bring something from home. So I brought it up to her one day and we talked about it, and she told me that she had so many things to do in a day that she didn't have as much time to put her energy into making my lunches like she used to. But I could see that she genuinely felt bad because I noticed the next few lunches were more polished than previous ones. And I appreciated her so much for trying that when the quality of the lunches started to go down again, I didn't even have the heart to complain. Fast forward, I have a day off, so my wife drags me to a Bible study that was being hosted at a neighbor's house. The food was so good that I kept going back for more. After my third plate, the woman who had made the food and I started talking. Basically, she told me that she was flattered that I liked her food so much and that she was training to be a chef and that she had more food that she would like to try out. I told her that would be perfect because I am always looking for different things to try, and whatever food she had made, I could just pick up in the morning and take with me to lunch. We exchanged information, and the next day she sent me an address to her home, which turned out to be right on my way to work and not too far from the construction site. So that's where I've been getting lunch for the past few days. I told my wife that she didn't have to make lunch for me anymore, and she didn't say anything until today. She said she thought I was getting lunch from the store, and I said that I don't see why it matters where I'm getting it from. She said she doesn't want me to pick up lunch from there anymore, and I told her she was being unreasonable for no reason. We had a big argument a few hours ago, and she's still mad. I really don't see what the problem is. She doesn't have to worry about taking time out of her day to make lunch for me, and I'm getting quality lunches again. How is this not a win-win for everybody? I'm confused. I know what everyone is implying, but it can't be because she thinks I'm cheating. I told her that she can literally check my hours. When I arrive at work, I have to clock in. If I was going over to her place to cheat, I would be clocking in late. So am I the jerk for letting my neighbor pack my lunch for me instead of my wife? Before I even talk about how the wife might feel in this situation, the chef in training probably didn't expect the OP to go get lunch every single day. If that was a conversation they had, then the OP probably would have mentioned that or included it somehow, but this chef person person is just paying for this guy's lunch forever? And even if that's not the case, if he's giving her money for food, the wife is going to still be upset. One response that summed up the way the wife probably feels in a concise way is somebody that said she's upset because you made her feel that preparing your lunch every day was an important part of taking care of you. Then you basically said, never mind, I met someone else who wants to take care of me. I get what the OP is logically trying to say. He's saying that she's really busy, she has a lot going on, and so this will take one extra responsibility off of her plate. But the way the wife probably wants that to be solved is either by him doing it himself or finding a solution that doesn't make it seem like it's another woman that is competing for this position. I got the impression that the wife knew about this the entire time, but the way he explained the situation ends with the wife being surprised. She didn't know that he was getting this food from this woman. She even says, I thought you were going to the store to get it. So even though he's not cheating, it sounds like he's being purposely deceptive for some reason, but yet thinks it's obvious that the wife should understand. If that was the case, then why didn't he just bring it up when he started going there? But let me know how you see the situation down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. A scammer tried to gain access to my computer by pretending to be something that he wasn't and ultimately hacking into my computer. When he connected to my computer, he was vulnerable because I was connected to his computer. So I hacked him before he could hack me and destroyed all the files I could on his computer so he couldn't continue to scam other people. Here's how I did it. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. Here's the background. I got our home phone number long before cell phones were a common thing to have. As things evolve, that phone number is a part of my history and is utilitarian to use for things that I don't want ringing on my cell phone, like 99% of anything that requires a phone number for no good reason. So I have kept that phone number alive over the years. Most recently, I moved it a few years back to an online service that charges a tiny amount of money per month to host it for me. I access it via a SIP client on my computer. So here's the story. Because of the nature of the phone number, it randomly rings. If I have time, I mess with whomever is calling. Most of the calls are, your car warranty is about to expire kind. Some of the calls are about non-existent credit cards, but my favorite calls are from the scammers. I record all calls that come into this phone number. In my state, only one person needs to know that a call is being recorded. And besides, these scammers are all overseas, so I really don't care about their laws. So when a scammer calls, I tend to answer and play along. Sometimes these calls last a few minutes before they give up on me. Today, I set a new record, a total of 1 hour of their time wasted. The call comes in as normal. I string the guy along, I play dumb, I keep them thinking that I'm an easy target. After 40 minutes, I tell him that I have to hang up and he can call me back in an hour. To my surprise, this idiot calls me back. So I decided to see if I could get him to let me connect to him by continuing to play dumb. My plan is based on knowing that they have a handful of tools at their disposal, easiest of which is TeamViewer. So I play along until they get me on a TeamViewer, but I never give them real information on my end. I just ask for my partner ID. The idea is that with TeamViewer, you can switch who is showing the screen after you make the initial connection. I know that I have but a few precious seconds of time if I manage to get them to give me their ID and password to make my plan happen. So I have a dummy terminal set aside for all of this. I quickly write out my set of commands so I can copy them to my clipboard and launch them as soon as I get connected. Sure enough, they give me their ID and password. I am ready and I strike. I paste the commands into a run window and let it rip. As I see the window pop up with the command prompt, the deletion of the folders begins and the guy starts to stutter and asks, "What are you doing, sir?" I keep playing dumb until my connection is terminated. Files have been deleted. The scammer is pissed. He starts to curse at me. I eventually start taunting him and cursing back at him. After a while, he hangs up. For proof, here's a little sample from the phone call.
Yeah, hi sir. My name is Steve and I'm calling you from the Consumer Protection Department of the refund. To refund back your money, the money which you have paid regarding for your computer maintenance and service. Okay?
Okay, I guess.
So the reason we are calling you because our main server has got crashed down, so we are unable to provide you any kind of services into your computer. That's the reason, sir, we have to refund back your money. All right?
Can I transfer it to my other computer?
No, sir. We are calling you from the refund department, okay, to refund back your money.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
So I believe, sir, you have remember the 9-digit verification code which we have given it to you at the time of service. So can you please tell me that code, sir?
I have no idea.
Okay, no problem, sir. So what I will do, sir, I will help you to like regenerate that 9-digit code. So you have to be in front of a computer. Okay.
Okay.
So once your computer is on, sir, then let me know. All right.
Okay, I'm turning it on now.
There's a bunch of time that the scammer spends getting everything all set up so the scam works properly, but if we fast forward till something actually happens, we get to this part.
125-992-34.
031?
You're telling me wrong again and again.
No.
You have to tell me correct.
It's 031.
Oh, 031. ऐसे बोल रहे. What are you doing, sir?
I'm clicking on action.
You're clicking in action?
Yeah.
हमारे चूहे गाना मार रहा था. Sir, you're trying to be smart, right? You're trying to be smart.
I'm not smart.
You're trying to be very smart, man.
I'm not smart at all.
What were you doing at my computer? What were you trying to do?
You told me to connect to your computer.
But what were you trying to do on my computer?
I was doing what you were telling me to do. I was trying to click on action.
No, you're not clicking on action. You're trying to my computer, man.
Why do you talk with such language? You kiss your mother with that mouth?
Asshole.
You kiss your mother with that mouth? You curse like that to your customers?
You're trying to my computer,
Peter, I don't know anything about computers.
Yeah, how many sisters you have? I'll like you one by one. I'll put them together, motherfucker.
First you have to find your
sister fucker.
First you have to find your useless little bitch. Yes, you are a son of a... Oh, you're a happy little scammer. You kiss your mommy with that mouth? You kiss your mommy with that mouth, you stupid little scammer?
I'll fuck his sister with that mouth.
Oh,
Why you were trying to be so smart, you motherfucker?
Because you're a little scammer, you little... That's why.
Motherfucker.
Is that all you know how to say in English?
Obviously, some of that was edited out for YouTube, but the full phone call is more than an hour long, so if you want to hear the whole thing, I'll post it in the Am I the Jerk Discord, or if you don't use Discord, I'll post it on the Am I the Jerk Twitter as well. You can find either one of those on the social media link down below in the description. But going back to this story, look, I know they have cloned systems and they will be back up and running in no time at all, but this wasted an hour of their time, and that is an hour they can't use to scam someone else. So, am I the jerk for hacking into a scammer's computer who was hacking into my computer? This guy is a legend. He actually goes through and wastes the time of all these scammers because these scammers are actually preying on some of the most vulnerable people out there. People that are way too old to have the time or take the time to understand technology, and these scammers really exploit that. They find people at their weakest and they try and empty out their bank accounts or try and steal whatever gift cards they have, or you name it, there's a scam for it. So the fact that he would volunteer his time to waste their resources, thus making their scamming operation that much less profitable, is commendable. And this actually seems like it's becoming more and more of a common thing. I see people now that are using voice changers so they sound like they're old people. There's that one guy that's able to get satellite images of the scammer's headquarters and then send it to them. There's all sorts of sophisticated counter scamming tactics that people use now. And as far as I can tell, that's the first time any of these scamming operations have been challenged. So in this case, the guy actually not only wastes their time, but he actually tries to connect to their computer and delete all of their files. I didn't know if that was actually going to be on the recording, and it turns out it was. That's why I included that one little snippet where it's the moment that the scammer realizes that this whole thing is being reversed on him, and he's the one who's having his computer remotely accessed. So not only did he spend an hour of this guy's time, he's going to have to spend however long it takes to restore those files. The OP doesn't seem to think that it'll take very long to restore, but it's better than nothing. So let me know if you think it was going too far by accessing this guy's computer when the scammer was trying to access his computer, or was it justified? Jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for flipping out on my fiancé for canceling all the vegan food options from our wedding food menu behind my back? I'm a 25-year-old female and my 31-year-old fiancé and I are getting married soon. There wasn't much that was disagreed on during the wedding planning except for food. Me and my family are vegans, and there are so many reasons why we chose this lifestyle, and one of them being that we have a history of health issues. My fiancé and his family are the complete opposite. They're hardcore meat eaters, which is fine by me, obviously. However, when deciding the wedding food menu, I wanted to add 4 to 5 vegan options. My fiancé and his mom objected, saying that it was a waste of money over food that isn't real food. They also argued that this would be offensive for their guests and suggested my vegan options just be the good old salads and appetizers. His mom wanted cupcakes. weeks. I said no, because for one, it's me and my family who's paying, and two, I want to make my guests feel welcome and not be treated as second-class citizens by being served salad. My fiance made a face and said, "Well, isn't that what vegans eat?" I refused to argue about it and said it was final. The other day, I found out that he had canceled all the vegan options and took them off the menu completely. He did this behind my back. I was seething. I called him at work, but he kept hanging up on me. I went straight to his workplace and I confronted him there and just flipped out on him. He was stunned to see me. At first, he said it was his mom's idea, but then he told me to go home because I was making a scene at the office. The fight continued at home. He defended himself by saying that I sort of made him resort to doing this after I kept brushing off his thoughts and his inputs and refusing to accommodate his family. But there were plenty of meat options. Why can't I get 4 to 5 vegan options when I'm paying for it? He yelled that it was his wedding too, not my family's. My family said that it was fine and they'll figure it out and told me to let it go, but I refused. Here's an update from the future. So his mom messaged me earlier to try and get me to listen to what she had to say after I kept ignoring her phone calls. She sent long walls of text to address what I did at her son's workplace, calling it all kinds of stuff from immature to unhinged. She then went on to explain how she's noticed that me and my family kept acting dismissive of her son's input and his contributions to the wedding. She said she noticed my behavior towards him and towards her entire family and wanted to speak up earlier but didn't and tried to keep the peace. She then went on to address the food menu issue and denied her involvement in the cancellation of the vegan option, but that didn't mean she didn't support her son's decision. Moreover, she thought it was so responsible of him to make that move because of my continual refusal to see how this stuff is just a waste of money. She also pointed out how I kept saying I paid for it and that technically this isn't just my money, it's mine and his because we're getting married, and she suggested that I wisen up and get rid of my money, I paid for it mentality. She finally mentioned how bad this whole situation is making me look, and she said that her and her son had already offered a number of compromises that I chose to brush off and decided to make it my weird hill to die on. She said that not only is her son upset, but she and her family are as well after hearing about it, and suggested that I just agree on their compromise and be done with it. This pissed me off beyond belief. I responded by letting her know that I'm still standing my ground on this, even if I have to call the whole wedding off. Because honestly, this is just ridiculous. It is. My mom and my dad, they don't even know what to say anymore. Apparently, my fiance saw my response to her. He's with her and is now trying to call me, but right now, I'm waiting on him to get home and see if he's still insisting on the stance he took. The final update. So the talk did not go well. I waited for him to come home so we could have a final conversation about it, but he still insisted on his stance. For more details, his family are a bit on the heavy side. Nothing wrong with that. They're perfectly within their right to decide how they want to live, but they get easily offended at the mention of the words weight and food. I tried so hard to focus on the issue at hand, but I noticed there was a pattern of this behavior. He said it wasn't true, and that this was just an attempt for me to throw past conflicts at him in order to win the current one. He claimed he tried to reason with me about why and how his guests might see those vegan options as offensive. Also said that his family love food and consider it a big deal, and how he didn't want his family to feel like there's certain options that they couldn't touch, and feel that there's a difference in how I treat them versus how I treat my family. He then went on to explain how it's just an event and how my family should just accept what's on the menu, and if they felt inconvenienced, so what? It's just a one-time thing. They're not gonna die if they had salad and appetizers. What he said wasn't a good enough reason for me because his folks are gonna think and say what they want, but at the end of the day, it's my wedding. And to be honest, realizing that my partner himself thinks it's okay to steamroll my opinions and decisions simply because he's prioritizing others and their opinions over me was really upsetting and not something that could be looked past. Normally, I'm a person of rational discussions and compromises. I'm all about compromises. I'd compromised on much bigger matters than just food, but like people said, it's not about the food anymore, if it ever was. Like, he'd literally lose nothing if he let me have what I wanted, but apparently he was willing to lose it all over this, which is fine by me. I gave him the ring back and called everything off. I just couldn't envision myself living like this any longer, having to walk on eggshells eggshells for his family and letting him basically override my opinions and have the final say no matter what? Marriage is about compromise, and here he has nothing to lose, yet chose to do this to me and my family. Mind you, this is my first serious relationship and I didn't know what to expect, but it's safe to say that his mom and family did make it feel like I was taking crazy pills on many occasions. So that's that. Last thing he said was that I chose my family over him and ended everything between us for the sake of keeping him happy. The decision's been made and it's done. I just wanted to give this update for those that wanted it. So, was I the jerk for standing my ground after flipping out on my fiance for canceling all the vegan food options from our wedding behind my back? From the way the OP explains the situation, it sounds like the fiance doesn't care about what the OP thinks at all. Like, it's not even taken into account in the slightest. It seems like the OP was open to the idea of logically trying to understand why they wouldn't have vegan options, since that was the route he was trying to go. He was trying to explain it logically, but the logic made no sense. His biggest argument was that he didn't want his family to feel like there's certain options that they couldn't touch. Oh no. What's gonna happen? Is the vegan food gonna contaminate the non-vegan food? If anything, the vegan family should be the one worried about that on the other side. If the meat contaminates the vegan food, because sometimes they share pots and pans and stuff like that. And if the guy hates being around vegan food that much and he hates everything that has to do with vegan food, then why would you marry someone who not only is vegan, but their whole family is vegan as well? That seems like something that should have been resolved long before there was ever a wedding. The husband was the one that made the call, but mostly he was the passive one in the situation. The one who seems like she's really pulling the strings is the mother. She's the one who's sending these walls of texts and calling her names. So if you were the one in the situation and you were about to get married and you found out the person you were about to be married to was unwilling to compromise at all on something like this, would you go through with the wedding or would you call it off? Let me know down below in jerk or not a jerk and why. Am I the jerk for calling my boyfriend a gatekeeper? We just finished watching the Black Widow movie and I told him that I really loved the beginning, but towards the middle, all the action scenes seemed a bit messy and convoluted and ended up not enjoying it as much. He then said that it was because I didn't understand some inside Easter eggs because I haven't watched like 50% of the Marvel movies. The thing is, I have watched them and I'm only missing Infinity War. He proceeds to call me a liar and changed his narrative saying that I haven't really watched them because I didn't sit down and watch them in order and because I haven't talked to him about the other movies. I explained to him that I had a life before him, that he can't tell me I haven't watched something that I watched before I even met him, and that it is annoying that he keeps insisting that I haven't watched something and calling me a liar. He even wanted to go through every Marvel movie for me to tell him what they were about and prove to him that I have watched them and that I remember them, because even if I have watched them, if I don't remember small details, that means that I haven't really watched them. Anyway, I told him he sounds like a gatekeeper by telling me I can't comment on the movie or I can't dislike it because I don't meet his standards of what it means to really watch a Marvel movie. I explained the timeline and the character relationships are not difficult to understand. I can connect the dots when watching movies. It's not rocket science. He has now decided to sleep on the couch because he is angry that we had a stupid argument that he started because I called him a gatekeeper and because I can't admit that I haven't watched most Marvel movies. An update from the future, well, I think my 2-year relationship is really over because of Black Widow. I sat him down to have a conversation, but he just kept getting defensive. So am I the jerk for calling my ex-boyfriend a gatekeeper? Why do people care so much about stuff like this? Not the Marvel movies. I totally get people really care about the Marvel movies and the characters and the stories, but specifically, why do they care about this part of it? Whether or not somebody totally gets it and if they have the right or not to speak on this thing because they don't have the full understanding, even though she has seen the movies. It's one thing to say that I saw all the movies too, I interpret it differently, and here's why, versus what this sounds like is just somebody berating somebody else, accusing them of lying when we can only assume she doesn't have a history of lying for no reason. And if that's the norm, then you probably don't want to be with this person in the first place. Am I the jerk for taking back a gift from a fake baby? I work at a popular clothing retailer, and I enjoy my job very much. My coworkers are great, customers are bearable, but one coworker, Rhonda, has been making my work life a living hell recently. We've worked together for a couple of years now, and things were great. I could even say that we were work friends. She invited me to her daughter's baby shower last month, and I agreed to go. What I didn't know was that this was not a regular baby shower. I arrived with a gift and was talking to my other coworkers that were there, and we figured out that none of us had met the daughter. Rhonda had introduced her daughter to our little group, and I congratulated her and thanked her for having us. us. She laughed and then said something like, "Thank you, but I'm not quite pregnant yet, but it's always good to be prepared for when the time comes." I was visibly confused, which seemed to offend her. After she walked away from our group, my coworker explained that Rhonda had told her when they arrived that this isn't a regular baby shower, and her daughter had been feeling down because quite a few of her friends had been pregnant. I asked the friends if they knew beforehand, and they said no, and that they were confused why they were asked to buy gifts, but decided not to make a big deal about it. I asked Rhonda why she wouldn't tell us that it wasn't a baby shower for a specific baby, and she explained, "The physical invitations explained it all. It is a party for her daughter to shower her with love." Well, none of us co-workers got physical invitations. I asked Rhonda if I could take my gift back since I'm not made of money, and I would prefer to get her daughter a gift when she was actually having a baby. Rhonda said that it would be rude if I took the gift back after giving it, and that her daughter was going through a lot and was looking forward to presents. I said, "I'm sorry, I can't do this." I took my gift and I left. The daughter sent me hateful messages on Facebook, including calling me a disrespectful old bee and a bad friend to Rhonda. I feel bad for storming off and taking the gift if it was going to cause this much grief, and I also realized that I grabbed a gift that was on top of mine that was for my coworker, and she said she wants me to bring it back to her and to not give it to Rhonda and her daughter, but Rhonda found this out and is threatening to go to HR if I don't return the gifts. And in addition to that, she wants me to buy something else off the registry. Most of the items in the registry aren't even for babies, for all the suffering that I've caused. If anyone cares, I will talk to HR on Monday. An update from the future: Rhonda admitted to stealing, damaging our merchandise, and then taking it home and got fired for it. She will not be missed. Nothing came of the HR investigation, but thankfully she was fired for something else. So was I the jerk for taking back the gift because I was lied to about this baby? I'm not surprised the HR investigation didn't lead anywhere, because this isn't really a work matter. This is stuff they're doing on their own outside of work property, but maybe some HRs still care about that regardless. The part that's baffling is that they try to basically con all of the coworkers into giving gifts for a baby that doesn't exist because the daughter feels bad that she isn't having a baby? What? This can't be a normal thing, right? And their only defense was that this was all explained on the physical invitation cards that they didn't even get in the first place. I would not feel bad at all about taking the gift back, because you were brought there under false pretenses and then they just pulled this rug out from under you only after you spent the time coming there and spent the money buying this gift for a baby that doesn't even exist. So what would you do if you spent money and time on a fake baby? Let me know down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. My girlfriend thinks that she becomes a demon when she sleeps. A literal demon, as in possession. I didn't believe her until I saw it. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. Before we jump in, just want to let you know this is a spooky story. My girlfriend talks in her sleep. She's been saying the most horrible things recently, but I'm infatuated with her. Utterly infatuated. And it wasn't at a healthy level. Far from it. I would think about her every moment she was away. I would sometimes sit on my couch and just stare at my phone waiting for her to text. I'd tell myself, don't contact her. Don't. It will come off as too strong. But then I'd still find myself clicking her name on my contact list before my inner voice would continue. You don't want her to know how desperately smitten you are with her. It's unattractive. It will scare her off. No. You must wait for her to call you this time, but it was excruciating and exhausting, almost unbearable. I once heard that the ancient Greeks believed that falling madly and irrationally in love with someone was a curse that you would wish upon your enemies. I could never understand what they meant. After all, isn't falling head over heels in love the ultimate goal nowadays? But now that it's happened to me, I have to say, the ancient Greeks were right. This is a curse. I was barely in control of myself, almost as though my infatuation with her had possessed me. The two of us were in the phase where we were being frisky together, but still in the dating phase. We were at the make or break era of a blossoming relationship where we'd either have the talk and formally be in a relationship, or we would slowly start to drift apart. The latter of which I don't think I would be able to cope with. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to. Almost everything about her captivated me. The way she held her hand over her mouth when she laughed, how she'd caress the pendant of her necklace when she was frightened, how she'd twirl her hair and her finger when she was excited, all of it. Her smell, her smile, her eyes. Yeah, I know, it probably makes you sick hearing about it. I feel the same way. I was never the hopeless romantic type, but now I can't stop fantasizing about her. I'd think about us doing the long 3-hour hike up to that magnificent view from one of our first dates, to that first kiss, as we overlook the lights of the city. But this time, I'd get down on one knee, bring out the ring, and, well, you know what would happen next. Alright, fine, I'll stop. Yes, this is a girl that I'd only been casually dating for a couple of months. I shouldn't be thinking about proposing yet. I know that. I'm just barely able to control myself any longer. I feel as though I'm losing power over the decisions I make. And that brings me to why I'm here, writing this out at the moment. It started with the very first real thing that troubled me about her. We'd never actually spent a night together. No matter how late she was over, once either of us showed signs of being tired, she'd up and leave. She wouldn't leave awkwardly or in anger, just a casual kiss goodnight, a smile, and call me soon. It was something I didn't really even notice the first few times she did it, but after almost 8 weeks of dating, it was becoming strange. I'd have to ask her about it. It took drinking almost an entire bottle of wine before I had the courage to do it. She looked almost defeated when I asked her and lowered her eyes in embarrassment and said, "I knew this talk would come eventually." She started. She took in a deep breath with a long drawn-out exhale. "Recently," she paused again, "I've started talking in my sleep." She shook her head in embarrassment. "It's called somniloquy. I looked it up." I shrugged and laughed out loud. My demeanor seemed to say, "That's it?" "No, Stephen, listen," she said. She wasn't laughing. "It's bad. It's completely out of control. It's not just random words or gibberish. No, it's horrible. I say horrible, disgusting things." She was starting to raise her voice, breathe heavy, and tear up. I approached her and held her. I told her it couldn't be that bad. I told her to spend the night, and I told her she was probably exaggerating. I was wrong. That night she stayed at my house, but she warned me of something before falling asleep. "Whatever you do, don't wake me up. It makes me really scared and disoriented if that happens. And don't respond to me. Just ignore it." I nodded and agreed. "If it becomes too much," she continued, "just leave the room and sleep on the couch. I won't mind." I told her not to worry about it. I told her it wouldn't be a big deal. I told her I wouldn't leave to the couch. I'd stay beside her in the bed. But I was wrong. I couldn't even last one night. We both fell asleep without incident. I don't know how many hours passed, but I woke up in the dark with a sensation that someone was watching me. And then I remembered she was with me. She was actually spending the night. I smiled, but then I noticed the shadowy outline of her sitting up on the bed. She was looking down at me, staring. It creeped me out. I'll admit it. Her posture was entirely different. It was though she wasn't even her at all. Then she spoke. It wasn't her voice that I heard. It was much lower and gravelly, like something out of a horror movie.
"I'll chew the skin from your bones."
I froze. At first, I just kept looking at her. This is not at all what I expected. I thought it would be more like the way that Tourette's is often portrayed, just some random swearing and shouting. I honestly thought to myself, what will I do if she attacks me right now? What if she really does try to chew the skin from my bones? But then, she just lied down and went to sleep. I was creeped out. I tried to lie back down and ignore her, but struggled. I couldn't even close my eyes without thinking, maybe she's sitting up again and staring at me. And then one time I rolled over to look at her, and she was. Her face was pressed right towards mine. Her breath was foul and rotted, something that was most certainly not normal for her. She spoke again in the same voice as before.
"If you don't move to the couch, you'll be dead by morning."
That did it for me. I sat up in a moment and headed for the living room. She made some sort of wheezing sound as I left. I think it was supposed to be laughter. I was lying on the couch, but I wasn't going to be able to fall asleep. I was far too shaken. I was staring out towards the window, hoping to see the first few hints of the sun rising. And then I thought I heard something from the bedroom. I listened, and then I heard it again.
"Stephen."
It was that same low and gravelly voice. It sounded like a witch. I tried to ignore it at first, but then it continued.
"Stephen."
Still, I said nothing.
"I know you can hear me, Stephen. You're awake now. Why don't you come back into the bedroom?"
The voice barely sounded human.
"Or maybe you'd prefer if I come to you."
I still didn't say anything. I was told not to, but I listened. If I heard her start walking towards the bedroom door, I'm not even joking, I would have run right out of the apartment. But she had asked me not to respond to her in her sleep talking, so I didn't. And then I heard her once more.
Sorry if this spoils your plans.
She began laughing.
The two of you were supposed to walk that trail again.
She started. I wasn't even remotely prepared for what she'd say next.
You'd both be so tired when you'd reach the top. You'd look over the city. Then you'll get down on one knee and bring out the ring.
She began laughing. And that's when I realized this wasn't just a problem with sleep talking. It was something much more. Something supernatural. I had never told anyone about my proposal fantasy. There was simply no way she could have known about any of it. This was no longer about merely talking in one sleep. This was about possession. I can't go back into the bedroom. I have no idea what would happen if I did. Instead, I'm going to wait it out, holding up in my living room until the sun rises. I have a couple more hours yet. I can hear her laughing occasionally in the bedroom. It's still not her voice. Still that same low-pitched cackle. But as I sit on my couch writing this out, here is what scares me the most. Maybe my infatuation and utter obsession with her wasn't normal. I said before that I felt like I was losing control of myself. More so I believed in the typical falling in love story. No. I fear that the infatuation that I felt was the entity slowly taking control of me, of it controlling my thoughts, my fears, my ambitions, and anxieties. Maybe once I become completely absorbed, a transfer would occur and she would be free of it. I know I should leave. That I should just open the front door, get in my car, and drive away from here. But I can't. I can't leave her. I've already lost control. I'm infatuated with her. Utterly infatuated. This was probably the creepiest story we've ever seen on the channel. As soon as the OP started describing how the infatuation was out of his control at the beginning, I had a feeling that it was going to be some sort of voodoo type thing. I didn't expect him to actually think it was a supernatural explanation and that this thing was just possessing her, was using the infatuation to transfer over to him. I guess transfer itself over to him. If I was in this situation and I saw this happening, I just would have left right away. But I guess that's the whole issue, because he wanted to do that, but he was still held captive by his infatuation for her, even when he was terrified of her. I wish we got to see what happened after this, if they had an awkward conversation about what happened that night, and if he still planned to stick around with her even though he has this issue. I'm guessing he will, because he can't help but want to be with her. Before I forget to mention, we're actually looking for someone to help us work on some scary videos like this one. So if you have video making experience and you'd like to work on videos like this with us, there's a link down below where you can send us your previous work. This wouldn't be for Am I the Jerk, it would be for a new project. But going back to the story, if you found out this was happening to your girlfriend and you just discovered it happening, would you continue to be with her? What would you do in the situation? A situation where you actually think your girlfriend is possessed by a demon? Let me know down below. I got a fridge lockbox and it's destroying my relationship. Some background. I'm a 25-year-old female and my 28-year-old boyfriend and I have been together for 5 years. We've lived together for 3. Our relationship was great, truly. We have a joint account and contribute to it monthly to handle joint expenses, rents, groceries, etc. Everything else is split. My boyfriend is 6'3" and 200 pounds and works out daily. He eats a lot to keep up his caloric intake, which is fine except for one issue. We buy snacks and he always eats my half before I can even get to it. Normal food and ingredients he's fine with, but if it's quickly accessible, I'll never get any. We argue, he apologizes, rinse and repeat. This is literally the only bad thing he's done. Seriously, in all other aspects of our relationship, he's respectful and considerate. Snacks are where all bets are off. Anyways, last week I lost it after he finished an expensive cheese we had gotten that I was really looking forward to eating. It was all gone after an hour. I lost it. I didn't speak to him for a day and ended up ordering a fridge lockbox. After our next snack run a couple days later, I divided each snack in half and locked mine in the lockbox in the fridge. From his reaction, you would think that I was murdering puppies. He said it was disrespectful and controlling, and how dare I keep the food that he paid for from him. When I reminded him my money went into it too, he screamed that he didn't give a care and then left. He slammed the door so hard a picture fell off the wall and broke. He didn't come back until the next day. But that was the change for work and left immediately. He came home late and went straight to the guest room. 4 days of this. I broke last night and I asked him to please talk about it, and he said that he had nothing to say to me until I got rid of the lockbox. Honestly, I'm completely appalled at his reaction, and I'm genuinely worried that he may be on substances or having a mental break or something. This is the most irrationally I've ever seen a grown man react. He's ignored me only to randomly ask if I've gotten rid of the lockbox. I am not getting rid of the lockbox. We're supposed to renew our lease next week. I'm considering cutting my losses and just leaving. Is this relationship even worth salvaging? Is there anything I can do to solve this? He is refusing to communicate unless I get rid of the lockbox, which is not happening. Update from the future. Hey guys, I don't know if anyone wanted an update, but here it is. A lot happened. My boyfriend kept staying out late and refusing to talk. So I tried to talk to my boyfriend about the lockbox again. And I mentioned that I didn't think the lockbox was the real issue, but he was a brick wall. He insisted that it's abusive and controlling to deny him food. I kept pushing, asking if he was on substances or cheating. I said him flipping out over something so small and staying out at all hours was very suspicious. I said that I thought he was using the lockbox as an excuse to be out of the house doing something bad. Me saying that unleashed an hours-long screaming tantrum that ultimately resulted in him throwing my MacBook against the wall, shattering it. Honestly, I really thought he was gonna hurt me. So yeah, I called my dad, who called the cops. I don't want to get too into the legality of it, but I'm pressing charges for destruction of property. It was a $2,500 laptop. My dad and godfather got me moved out yesterday, and now I'm looking for a new place. I don't have a lot except for clothes, a couple of kitchen appliances. I left the lockbox, but took my snacks with me because F him. I left it locked too. My now ex-boyfriend has been spamming me. I'd block him, but I feel like I need this for evidence in case his behavior escalates. I texted him the first night that we are done, took our photos down, everything. He began ranting at me. Here are some gems. Raging about how I still didn't get rid of the lockbox, asking for stuff he gifted me back, telling me I owe him money and rent for his new place, that I owe him a new car. I have no idea why he would say this. I have never even driven his current car, and that my MacBook was old and worthless and he wouldn't pay for a new one. I bought it last year brand new. After about an hour, I guess he realized that we actually were broken up and that he couldn't talk me down anymore. Then came the paragraphs about how he was gonna marry me, he loves me, he wants to be better for me, that I can keep the gifts and he'll buy me a better MacBook. He freaked out over seeing I took our pictures down from social media. He then started sending me screenshots of his Google searches of engagement rings and telling me to just pick one. He also sent a couple voice messages of him just sobbing. Any respect I had for him as a person is just completely gone. I want nothing to do with this man. I don't care if he's having a breakdown or on something. He's not my problem. I screenshotted his messages and forwarded them to his mother. She can deal with her son. That's the most I'll ever do for him again. As for me, I'll be okay. I have some savings, so taking on full rent for a place as well as a deposit and fees won't be too much. This has been a weird week. I feel like I should be sad, but like I said, I lost all respect and I don't even feel anything but disdain for him. My parents have been buying me my favorite comfort snacks and being super supportive. They're gently pushing for therapy, and I think that that's probably a good idea. I'll start my search once I'm settled into a new place. But to you, was I the jerk in the first place for getting a fridge lockbox that led to all of this? I don't think that the OP is in the wrong here at all. I think she saw bizarre behavior, stuck up for herself, and handled it the best way she knew how to. I think that part is more straightforward. The part that's not so straightforward is what exactly about this lockbox made him so upset. Was it the perceived disrespect of being treated like a child? Because if that's the case, maybe he felt that, but he couldn't articulate that for some reason. Or maybe it wasn't that. Maybe it had something to do even more specific in his childhood. Maybe he was in a family situation where he wasn't able to have food that he accessed and he thought he got over that as an adult, and now this reminds him of that and he doesn't even realize it. I mean, there can be so many possible explanations as to what is really the root of him behaving this way. The OP seems to think that he was on substances or cheating. I don't really see that connection at all, but anything is possible since we don't really have any more information to go off of. I really do think that a lot of times people have the most emotional reactions to things that have to do with food. I mean, there's a reason we use the term comfort food, and there's a reason why cultures all over the world are intimately intertwined with food. It's almost like it's one and the same for some cultures. There's something about people's relationship to food that goes deeper than a lot of other things for some reason. I mean, there's even people that as kids, if they only had a very small amount of time to eat or also would have their food taken away, they just learn to eat extremely fast. They don't enjoy the food, they don't even taste the food, they just shove it down as fast as they can. And as adults, some people are never able to change those eating habits. It's a complicated subject. None of it justifies him throwing her MacBook at the wall. That is just nuts. But let me know what your theory is down below about this whole fridge lockbox situation and what might be the cause of it at the root. And of course, a jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for going home after I overheard my husband say that he didn't want to bring me with him to his family vacation? My husband goes on annual vacations with his family. I'm on okay terms with them, but since we've only been married for a short time and I don't see his family much, we still have that barrier that keeps us from being completely comfortable around each other. His family arranged for the vacation last week. I, out of curiosity, asked if I could come. My husband felt hesitant, but I told him it'd be a great opportunity to get to know his family better. He agreed to take me, and his family were surprised to see me, but still welcomed me. On the third day of vacation, his dad, mom, brothers, and spouses were all sitting at a table outside talking while I was preparing a fruit salad. As I was making my way back, I overheard my mother-in-law say, "Did she really have nowhere else to spend the weekend?" At first, I had no idea who she was talking about, so I kept on walking, but stopped once I overheard my husband say, "I know, and I didn't want to bring her with me because what was I supposed to do? You know how pushy she can get." I instantly figured it was about me. I felt so shaken up to the point where I almost dropped the salad. This whole time I was there, I cleaned, I cooked, I looked after the kids, and this is how they think of me? An inconvenience to them? I quietly booked a ticket and went home on the first plane. He called and texted, but I didn't respond anything other than let him know that I was home. He got back and went off on me, saying what I did was disrespectful and juvenile. I told him I overheard the conversation he had with his mom, but he said that I was wrong for eavesdropping and that his family will warm up to me on their terms, so I should stop pushing to be around when they don't feel comfortable with it. Basically saying it was my fault for coming along in the first place. He said that going home how I did made him and his family disappointed and gave them a really bad impression about me. I think that I might have messed this up and somewhat ruined it for them as well. Am I the jerk? No, you're not the jerk. The husband just seems spineless. If he didn't want you to go on that trip, he should have said, "I don't want you to go on this trip." And if he wanted to explain it, he could have explained it. He could have said, "This is between me and my family," and then they could have had that conversation if that was something they wanted to do or not. But this guy is just playing both sides. He's trying to put on the fake smile to the wife and then trying to appease his family at the same time. It's just two-faced. And the last people you want to be two-faced to in life are the people you care about the most. Your family, and in this case, your wife. But let me know how you see the situation down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. At a furry convention, an entitled dad tries to force us to take his son and bring him into our private hotel room where we are having a private furry party, and we're all in our 30s. When we repeatedly reject him and his son from coming into our private furry party, the entitled dad retaliates. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. This didn't happen to me, but to a friend of mine, and the details will be as he told me the story. So long story short, my friend is a furry, and at the time was attending Midwest Fur Fest. Now, there are a ton of fun activities that attendees can partake in, and most of the panels and activities listed on the official program are totally appropriate for family and kids. That being said, like any other type of geeky convention, people will hold hotel room parties in their rooms or suites that are not a part of the official program and are not the responsibility of the convention itself. Very often, those room parties will either be gatherings of friends, or sometimes they will just be centered around certain social groups. For example, there are furries of color parties, and now there are trans room parties. And sometimes, well, there will be parties of the more adult kind, if you know what I mean. Sometimes, to attract a certain crowd, especially at the social group parties, they will advertise the room party on a board near the hotel lobby to advertise the party room's number for those who might be interested to attend. Anyway, those parties are obviously private functions, and obviously, the person who is paying for the suite or room has complete liberty of choosing who is allowed inside and who is not, especially if they are just a gathering between friends. Flash forward to Saturday evening. This is generally the biggest evening of the convention in terms of official events and room parties. My friend is hosting a room party for gay men in his suite. The attendees are all legal adults. The majority of them are in their late 20s and early 30s. Nothing risque is going on. It's just a bunch of gay men together in a room, so colorful discussions and a bit of flirting / groping is happening from time to time. I mean, duh. At some point early in the evening, they hear a knock at the door. My friend goes to the door and slyly opens it to see a kid, no older than 15 or 16, standing outside the door. My friend says, hi, can I help you?
Can I come in?
My friend slightly giggles and says, no, this is a private party. It's not a part of the convention. Sorry. My friend then closes the door and returns to entertaining his guests. About 15 minutes, there's another knock at the door. This time, my friend's roommate goes to answer the door and finds the same kid standing there, and this time, he has his father with him. Yeah? The entitled dad says,
Yes, my son came here earlier and was refused to be let in.
well, yes, but...
Is there a specific reason why my son can't attend this event?
At this point, my friend intervenes and says, Sir, this is a room party. It's not a part of the official program. Plus, your son is a teenager and everyone here is a grown man in their 30s. This would be extremely inappropriate.
Don't give me that, boy. We paid full price for attendance pass. Yes, I expect my son to be able to enjoy this convention to his fullest.
But that's what I'm telling you. This isn't covered by the convention ticket. This has nothing to do with...
What's not to understand? This party was advertised downstairs in the lobby.
My friend said, the board downstairs will advertise a lot of private room parties. It's a convention thing. People organize gatherings amongst friends and social groups because they're all gathered in the same spot for the weekend. That doesn't mean it has anything to do with the convention proper. Now, please, can you leave? We've told you more than once that your son is not welcome here. My friend at this point pushes the entitled dad and his kid out and closes the door. At this point, everyone thinks the story is over, but as you know, it isn't. Sometimes entitled parents are petty. At around 11:30 p.m., a much stronger knock is heard at the door. My friend goes to open the door and is met with hotel security and a Rosemont Police Department officer. He says, what is going on? The hotel security says,
Sir, we've got a report of illegal activity taking place in this room. We'd like to take a quick checkup.
my friend is flabbergasted, but lets the cop and the security personnel in. Of course, they find absolutely nothing weird going on. My friend says, can I at least know what this was about? This was very distressing. Hotel security says,
A man came to us earlier and said that your party guests were doing illegal substances and committing acts of gross indecency by being exposed and inappropriate where other people could see them.
my friend then realizes it was more than likely the entitled dad and tells the hotel security about how that dad tried to force the party attendees to let his son attend a room party full of grown male adults and how they had told them to leave repeatedly. Hotel security apologizes and my friend got a partial refund on his room to make up for the intrusion, and no more problems happened from then on. He doesn't know if anything happened to the man or his son. Was he the jerk? As many people have already pointed out, who in their right mind would leave their son unattended with a room full of adult strangers that is their private space, a space where they can lock the door? I mean, here it sounds like these people were totally fine and normal, but what if they weren't? What if it was just a random group of people where you just drop off your son and say, all right, son, have fun? That's a pretty scary thought that the dad would just so easily dump him in a situation like that. What I'm guessing is that the dad was probably counting on this to be some time that he would have to himself and was hoping that this room full of strangers would babysit his kid at this furry convention. I can't really think of another explanation of why he would be so insistent to drop the kid off there, unless the kid for some reason was pushing the dad, but I don't think the dad would be that adamant if it was just a kid trying to push him into it. And what did the kid even think that this was? A place to make friends? Or something totally different? Maybe he thought it was the secret side of the furry convention. The OP actually added one last thing, and he said that the dad was probably some kind of guy who thought that literally every single thing that was advertised at the con was family friendly and a part of the programming. I've seen this kind of reasoning before. I wouldn't be surprised if at one point he complained to the con ops about not being let into an event, only for con ops to silently shake their heads in disbelief. To be honest, this is one of the negative side effects of trying to make the furry fandom more palatable to the mainstream. Now you have families thinking it's a quirky, affordable type of Disneyland trip, and they will completely ignore the fact that the average attendees are hormonal, queer 20-somethings who will spend Saturday evening getting sloshed and then dance like a bunch of spazzy morons at the rave. It's like people's common sense flies away at furry cons. So if this happened to you, let me know how you would have handled the situation down below, and your jerk or not a jerk, and why? So to begin this story, I have to explain. I'm a college student in Portugal. Sorry if my English isn't 100%. I was born and raised in Azores, some little islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. In order to pursue college, I had to move to the mainland. For this, I had to rent an apartment. It's a good apartment, 3 rooms, 2 bathrooms, a living room, a kitchen, and it's in a quiet neighborhood, so all good. This was until they started to do construction work in the apartment above. This construction work is made by a TV show called Querido Muy de Casa. That literally translates to, honey, I changed the house. It's quite famous here. They remodel the entire house, replacing everything within it with new furniture, new floor, you get it. So they make a lot of noise. I'm not the party kind of guy, and I'm quite calm and peaceful, and I like to stay at home, have some friends here, drink a bit, play some games, etc. And I also do a lot of my college work at night in the apartment. I spend most of my day in class. So to explain this, Portugal has a law that you can make noise from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. and most of my classes start around 11 or 12, which works great for me since I go to sleep around 4 a.m. due to all of the work I have to do and a little extra time for myself. They started drilling the floor at around 8 a.m. every single day. Me and my housemate were shocked by the amount of noise that they were making. We let it pass since it shouldn't take more than a week to replace the floor. I make that assumption because me and my dad did it once to our old house back on the island, but no, that noise lasted for the entire time they were there. I got a bit upset since I couldn't sleep, but I also couldn't leave the college work undone, so I decided to try and talk with them. I went upstairs to the apartment and knocked. Then came this really fat and short guy looking at me like I wasn't even there, and the conversation went like this. Hey, I'm from the apartment down below. What do you want? I was gonna ask if you guys could start drilling around 10 a.m. I'm a college student and I do most of my work at night. Sometime I only get to sleep in the morning. Is that possible? We have a job to do. You should go to sleep early if you want to sleep. He closes the door. I was pissed but remained calm. After all, it is kind of my fault if I go to bed at that time. Some time goes by and the noise continues. I get grumpier and grumpier. I call the customer service of the show. They said politely that there is nothing that they can do about it since it's in their legal rights. I should talk with the guys in the apartment so we can come to some conclusion. Weeks go by. I'm wondering, that apartment is the same size as mine. How are they taking so long? Until a glorious morning, I wake up, normal routine. I go to the bathroom to take a shower, and when I turn on the light, what do I see? My bathroom full of clay. Everything completely dirty. Rocks everywhere and a hole right on top of the toilet. I am furious, and my housemate arrives that morning, so I tell him about it, and he is not a calm person in these type of situations. We both go up to the upper apartment, and I convinced him to let me talk. He agrees. I knock on the door, and to my surprise, it's the same fat guy, but this time he was looking at me. You guys opened a hole in my bathroom. He interrupts and says, well, yeah, we know. We already covered our part. Okay, but what about ours? Gosh dang it, can't you fix it? I mean, you are men. Can't you fix the house? My friend is furious, but I calmly put my hand on him and keep talking. No way, you broke it, you're gonna fix it, unless we have to call the landlord and sue you and sue your show for this. Well, okay, we will fix it. No need to get all formal. We came back to the house and we could hear them making fun of us because of the hole. My friend is furious, but I'm calm because I already thought of a way to get back at them. A couple of days go by when they finally decided to fix the hole. 2 nice guys came down and fixed it. They said they were sorry for everything. We chatted. They were cool, but my revenge was already planned. Sorry, dudes. Me and my friends have JBL speakers, the good ones that can play loud. So this is where the revenge begins. Every day I started to go to bed early now so I could be up at 8 a.m. First, I take a shower and set up for college. Then I plug both of my speakers into my laptop and search for Japanese dirty videos. You know, because Japanese girls scream like hell in a high-pitched voice. Leave the volume up at max and let it play in a loop until I get home at 6 p.m. Oh, my amusement was speechless. My housemate agreed with this since we both started to leave the apartment earlier, until one day he heard a knock on the door and it was the fat guy. Hey, I don't know what you're doing, but it has to stop. We are recording today and we can't have those weird noises in the background. They record the episodes in the house so they can authenticate the sound in the house and everything. They could easily use a studio for the sound, but they are really cheap about saving money. Nah, since you are in the legal right to make noise from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., I am too. I can make the noise that I want in that period of time. My neighbor Karen and her man manslave, aka her submissive husband, have made my life worse for years and years. My family and I were immigrants in poverty for years, and she made things go from bad to worse. She would throw bottles off her balcony at our car, she cut up our treadmill, she took all of our common space, she destroyed our recycling bins and our trash bins, and the list goes on for years. She comes up with the plan and then commands her husband to do it. So finally, I decided to take my revenge through a meticulously designed plan to systematically break her down to the point that she loses everything, including her own home and custody of her son. Here's what I did. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I'm an only child born in the USA to older parents. They were both 45 when I was born, who immigrated from Venezuela in the 90s. When I was 2, my dad was shot in the head. He lived for another 13 years, but the incident permanently damaged certain parts of his brain, and he was a completely different person for those last 13 years. He went from being the most loving, incredible, caring, compassionate person around to an aggressive, violent jerk who blew up over the smallest things, but only ever at his inner circle, me, my mother, or other close family. He always managed to keep his composure around strangers for fear of somebody calling the police and getting him arrested, but he would later let it all out on my mom and myself, admittedly mostly me. After the shooting, he could never work again, and my mom was forced into a position of being the family's sole breadwinner. We lived in poverty for many, many years because the USA wouldn't recognize her college degree and she couldn't afford to go to college again, so she couldn't work in her field and had to start at the bottom of the ladder. Dad eventually died when I was 15 of issues related to his shooting. Now, when I was 7, my parents decided to move into a town with a better reputation for their schools than the one we were currently living in so that I could attend a better school. They bought a house literally on the edge of town. Most of this town is incredibly expensive, but because on the other side of our street and across the town line there's a big complex of government subsidized housing, our area is much cheaper. This is the house with the jerk neighbor. The house is a 3-family. For the last 16 years we have owned and occupied the first floor, while the terrible neighbor lived on the second floor until recently. The third floor has been occupied by over 10 owners and tenants over the years. None have stayed more than 3 or 4 years, and some have stayed as little as a handful of months. Now, the second floor B, let's call her Karen, because obviously she has a husband who we'll call Bill, and they have a young son, Henry. So this is where the story begins. When we moved in, Karen and Bill had already been here for a few short months. The 3 of us on the first floor, Karen and Bill on the second, and the original third floor's owners bought the house from the same crew who had bought it and turned it into a 3-family, fixing it up in the process. Karen quickly showed her true colors as a bully. Over the years, there's been countless examples of nasty stuff that she's pulled. Her husband, Bill, is an immigrant himself, and he doesn't speak very good English. He's very submissive to her and does whatever she wants, but in front of other people, makes himself out to be physically dominant. In our first years here, they used to fight a lot, which we would hear regularly from downstairs. They would yell sometimes for hours, and occasionally it seems like things got violent. Henry was born maybe 10 years ago. He doesn't factor into this story until much later, but anyways, the point is, whatever Karen's done, she's always gotten away with. Here are a couple of the highlights. My mom always took pride in how well she took care of our trash bin and our recycling bin. Every month, she'd give them a quick rinse after that week's trash day, just to make sure they wouldn't develop a smell or a colony of bacteria wouldn't move in. Karen apparently wasn't so diligent, and one time her recycling bin got really nasty, and I mean really nasty, so she just left it out back. The context being, behind the house isn't a backyard, it's just pavement with a parking spot designated for each unit, and began using our trash bin. Lo and behold, ours started to get nasty, and mom quickly went from spending 3 minutes rinsing it out every month to about 45 minutes scrubbing it with soap and water to clean it out. Eventually, we decided we'd had enough, and she and dad sent Karen and the third floor tenants of the time a polite but firm email that basically said, whoever started using our recycling bin, please stop and use your own. You never asked our permission, and we take good care of it. And ever since you began using it, it's become disgusting. We knew it was Karen and Bill, but mom and dad figured it was more polite without a call out, and they didn't want to start anything. Within a week, 2 things happened. Karen and Bill got a brand spanking new recycling bin, and 1 week later, we found ours had been mysteriously destroyed. Someone took a knife to it and cut it to pieces. We had no way of knowing who it was, but we had a pretty good feeling we knew exactly who it was. was. Yes, we had to get a new one. Because we had no evidence of who did it though, my parents didn't say anything about it. Back when we could afford a car, we haven't had one since our first few years here, we used our parking space out back. Every time that Karen and Bill hosted a party, which back then was surprisingly frequent, they would toss their trash over their balcony into the general vicinity of the trash and recycling bins out back, which is literally right next to our designated parking space. Most of the dents we had on our car, an 88 Toyota, were from bottles thrown from the second floor balcony. We had windows break a couple times, same deal. Each time it happened, my parents would politely go upstairs, knock on Karen and Bill's door, and respectfully ask them to stop throwing stuff over the balcony because we know you don't mean it, but sometimes it accidentally hits our car. Each time they went and did that, Karen and Bill stopped, but they would do it again until they got caught during their next party. Again though, my parents never wanted to escalate the situation, so they never justified taking it further than knocking on our door and politely asking them to stop. This is another example of Karen's utterly terrible behavior, but it is also relevant for the revenge part of the story, so I'm putting it after this section. Our basement is shared between all three units. Each unit has a designated space boxed out, kind of like office cubicles, and there's some designated common area in between. Years ago, maybe 8 or 9, Karen and Bill completely filled their designated basement cubicle, so they just started piling stuff all over the common area. Eventually, they developed this enormous pile of junk in front of Unit 1's, our unit, oil tank for heating. My mom and dad never said anything because it happened over a long period of time and they didn't want to start a fight. And as far as I know, none of the third floor folks ever said anything either. But it got to the point where she and her husband were taking up common space area that was easily twice the size of their designated cubicle. Now, I'll be the first to admit that for many years my parents and I weren't great neighbors either. We didn't bully anyone, but due to my dad's condition, he could be triggered by seemingly anything, and suddenly he'd be in a rage and we'd all be yelling. I grew up in that generally chaotic environment, and yeah, there were several times when the police were called to our house for noise disturbances, but we kept to ourselves and we were nothing but polite and respectful to all of our neighbors, always. That said, you can imagine that our first priority was always my dad and his stability, and we had enough on our hands with that, so he and my mom always swallowed their pride and avoided doing anything to antagonize Karen, no matter how terrible her behavior got, and believe me, there are plenty more stories on top of the ones I told. But after my dad died, I developed my own issues for a while with mental health. Growing up in a constantly chaotic, violent, aggressive environment took its toll on me, and for a while, I had deeply depressive tendencies. I struggled with these tendencies for years and eventually wound up graduating high school after 8 years of attending classes in some form or another. Similar to when my dad was sick, I became my mother's top priority at that point. So again, Karen and Bill kept getting away with all of their nonsense. I got better though. Nowadays, I'm even off my psych meds. I got my act together and graduated high school, even college. I have my bachelor's degree and I'm doing some post-grad stuff for master's. Most of the way has been paid for by scholarships. Shout out to the absolutely remarkable book, Confessions of a Scholarship Winner. But I recently decided that as an adult now, and therefore as someone with a little more say in things around the house than when I was a kid, I had enough of watching Karen bully my parents, particularly my mother, for so many years. I wanted revenge. Phase 1 of my plan was to ease my way into the adult condo administration dialogue. I began helping out more around the house, as in around the common area parts of the house. I single-handedly redid the back porch's flooring. It sounds like more than it is. I just pulled out all the floorboards and nailed new ones in. I replaced both storm doors about 6 months apart when each one began having problems, different kinds of problems, it doesn't matter what they were. I also took care of some comparatively smaller things. I weed whacked out back for a couple hours, cut the grass out front a few times, and got up early so that I could beat everyone else to shoveling every time it snowed one winter. Not 18-19, but 17-18. I also began wheeling back everyone's recycling and trash bins after trash week every week, not just our own. After I did the first two things, each time I sent out an email to everyone in the condo to let them know that I had taken care of it, and all that I asked of the other two units was for them to reimburse me 1/3 of the cost for materials on their timetable, because of course I hadn't given them a heads up, so it was only fair that I allow them to pay me when they can. The smaller stuff from the last point, I obviously didn't need to announce anymore. The idea was just that over time, the neighbors would see me taking more and more initiative in things and being more active, which would go on to justify me participating more in inter-condo politics. I also made a point to keep conversations to emails so that there would always be a written record of every interaction. Phase 2 of my plan pretty much ran concurrently to phase 1, but had an entirely different purpose purpose and was overall entirely different. I began gathering evidence of everything I could. I asked my mom to track down all the old emails she and my dad had exchanged with the neighbors, documenting many instances that Karen and Bill had pulled their nonsense. I went downstairs and took a video of Karen and Bill's stuff all over the common area, particularly emphasizing all of the highly flammable wooden and cardboard stuff they had piled up in front of our oil tank. I dug up and poured over the deed to our apartment, specifically the sections that detailed the rules around the common areas and the limitations of our units as compared to the others and vice versa. To my utter joy, Mom and Dad never threw out that old recycling bin that Karen and or Bill had knifed up, apparently because they just never knew what to do with it and never wanted anyone to ask questions. Naturally, I dug it up and took plenty of photos. I did one other evidence gathering thing that needs a bit more explanation. Karen and Bill are awful parents. Mom and I regularly hear the things they do to Henry through the very thin ceiling we have here. I'm decidedly not going to go into detail because even though I changed his name, he's younger and I feel it would be disrespectful to do that to him. But let's just say it crosses the line. This is a topic I'm particularly sensitive about because I grew up in a situation that was bad myself, so believe me when I say this part, this is the most satisfying part of my revenge. Let's just say that every time I could hear that through the ceiling, I took out my phone and started recording until it stopped. Finally, phase 3 of my plan was basically to bait Karen and or Bill into a trap that I set that, as it turns out, would have humongous consequences for them. Mom and I have this old treadmill that we got for free. It's in the kitchen, and lately we've come to the conclusion that it just takes up a little too much space. We both use it a little, but not enough to justify keeping it. She wanted to toss it out, but I argued hard to keep it around because I knew I could use it for this plan. It would be my only shot. Remember how I mentioned we haven't had a car for years? Well, eventually I convinced my mom to let me put the treadmill outside in our parking space out back. I bought a large tarp to cover it so it would be protected from the rain, and I told her I'd start using it more if it was outside because it's nicer to do exercise in the fresh air. I sent out an email to Karen, CC'd to Bill, and to the current third floor folks, asking her to move all the things in front of our oil tank in the basement somewhere else. Despite the fact that those things had been there for many years, I justified addressing it now because I'm the one addressing it. And that's different from before because before I was a child and now I'm an adult who actively participates in the inter-condo dialogue. I asked her to because the way she currently had it set up is a safety hazard and I'm just following the rules. I further let her know that if she and Bill didn't take care of it within a handful of weeks, that I would have no choice but to take care of it myself. In the same email, I let everyone know that I was putting our treadmill in our parking space out back, so that if anyone had any trouble with getting into their spot, please let me know. The same day I sent out the email, I put the treadmill out back. Now, I figured nothing was going to change from all the other emails I had sent about matters regarding the condo's administration, and nothing did. She and Bill never acknowledged anything. The current third floor guys didn't want anything to do with going up against Karen, so he just thanked me for the heads up about the treadmill and said nothing else. It's important to note here that my real reason for mentioning the treadmill in that email wasn't in case anyone had any trouble getting into their parking spot. Needless to say, sure, a treadmill in the kitchen is a pretty big and obnoxious thing, but a treadmill off to the side of an automobile parking space isn't really big at all. Plus, I placed it in such a way that it wasn't in anyone's way, giving everyone ample room to maneuver around. It was just there, off to the side. The reason I mentioned the treadmill in that email was to alert her to its presence and perhaps associate it in her mind with my request for her to move all of her stuff in the basement. Their time was up, so one night I got up around 1 a.m. when everyone else was asleep so nobody would hear me. I went downstairs to move their stuff. I can't explain to you how much I enjoyed this. I bought a GoPro, strapped it to my noggin, and carefully recorded the entire hour and a half of moving their stuff around. I took the enormous pile of junk in front of my mom and I's oil tank and found a way to fit all of it into their designated storage cubicle. In the end, it was packed. I have mild OCD, and I nearly exploded at the end from how well organized physically everything was, so that everything was neatly packed together and all the space was used at maximum efficiency. It was glorious, packed from floor to ceiling and almost from wall to wall all around. If you can just imagine one massive, near perfect rectangular prism of junk, that's what I had created. It was a masterpiece. I was so proud. On the side the door was on, there was enough space to walk to either wall, but you couldn't move into it anywhere. I got back upstairs to our apartment and I couldn't sleep the rest of the night. I was beyond excited. I wound up watching Infinity War to prepare for Ant-Man and the Wasp's then upcoming release. Sure enough, Karen and Bill took the bait. I must have been at school or work when they first discovered the basement because because I never heard a thing about it. In hindsight, it was probably best that I was out, even though I would have savored those angry shrieks like nothing ever before. In any case, within a few days, we discovered our treadmill destroyed. Similarly to the recycling bin of years past, it had been knifed up. I can imagine they probably wanted to straight up take a hammer to it, but they didn't want to make much noise. So they wound up just tearing the thing apart with a really big and sharp knife. They had seen we were using it, and aside from our trash and recycling bins, it was our only property that they had access to at that point. Several years back, I filled up the rest of the wall of our basement cubicle and installed a door with a lock, so our cubicle is now sealed off to everyone else, but the others are open and anyone can enter. Plus, I can imagine destroying a $1,000 treadmill is infinitely more tempting than a trash or recycling bin, so they went for it in retaliation for my stunt in the basement. After moving their stuff in the basement, I started timing my treadmill use differently so that I wouldn't run into them. As soon as I saw it after they destroyed it, I went straight to the camera I had set up in the pantry. It caught the whole thing. In true fashion of their relationship, Bill brandished an enormous knife and single-handedly destroyed the whole thing himself, while she stood next to him and seemingly ordered him to do it. She basically kept pointing around at all the parts she wanted him to cut up. With that in hand, I called the police. I reported the incident and told them my mother and I felt threatened by their presence, and we filed a restraining order against both Karen and Bill with the police the same day. I turned over all the evidence I had gathered of all their stuff over the years, and I also turned over all the audio clips I had of Karen and Bill terrorizing Henry. I figured since it was all audio and no video, it wouldn't be enough to get him out of their care, but maybe it would at least get the Department of Children and Families involved. Karen and Bill immediately claimed that I had broken a bunch of their stuff while moving it around in the basement, things that they had no doubt broken themselves, so I offered my GoPro recordings as proof that I had not, in fact, broken any of their stuff while moving it at all. The restraining order a person is allowed to file with a police report is always temporary, but you can always petition the court to extend it. Once Mom and I did that, it was granted. At that point, Karen and Bill hadn't been legally allowed to go back home for about a week, and since it became a longer-term restraining order, they were basically not going to be allowed to live in their own home for several years. So they made the obvious choice to sell the house and move elsewhere. Needless to say, selling a house you're not allowed to be near is a difficult task, and moving all of your stuff out of said house is even more difficult, particularly when you have so much of it. They wound up coordinating the entire house's sale from afar, with their realtor being the only person who came around to show the house. Once it was time for them to move, some relatives of theirs came around and packed everything up and loaded it onto a truck. Also, I was right. Based on my recordings alone, Henry wasn't taken from their custody, but DFC did get involved. I heard from their family that came around to pack up their stuff though that Karen and Bill did wind up losing custody of him. They didn't say much as to why, but they basically implied that their terrorizing of Henry ramped up a lot after everything went down between me and Karen and Bill, which is the only part I feel guilty about, but in the end, I hope this is a situation where the end justifies the means, at which point DFC was already sniffing around, so they wound up losing custody of him anyways. I have no idea where Henry wound up, but wherever he is, I obviously have nothing against him, and I hope he winds up in a much better situation than he was. Finally, I will say, for two such inordinately obtuse and disgusting human beings, they had surprisingly decent family members. The few times I ran into them and made small talk when they were around, they were pretty apologetic about the whole thing. I got the impression that this isn't the first time they're apologizing on Karen and Bill's behalf. I hope Henry is taken in by one of them and not chucked into the foster system. Here's hoping, kid. If we jump into the future, there is an update. Holy moly, this is great. Karen lost her job, or at least she's not working where she had been anymore. I assume she was fired, or at least that it had something to do with what went down, but I actually don't have a way of knowing. I got curious though after posting this because I remembered she worked as a guidance counselor at a school a few towns away, and I figured if the school had found out that the DFC took her kid, they might not have wanted her there anymore, and I may have been right. I got curious, so I asked a friend to ring the school secretary and asked to be transferred to the guidance department, where they asked for Karen's desk. She, my friend and the guidance secretary, just said matter-of-factly, "I'm sorry, that staff member is no longer employed here." And that was that. Seeing as all of this went down at the end of the 17-18 school year, I'm guessing they just replaced her at the beginning of this school year. The school's website lists one of the guidance counselors as having started working there this school year. Of course, I have no real way to know if she was fired, nor even if her leaving that position had anything to do with me and my revenge, but it seems like very odd timing, if there was no correlation. So, was I the jerk for going to the lengths that I went to get Karen to lose her house? This is one of those revenge plans that was pretty unusual because of how meticulous and precise the planning that went into this was. It's like the original poster here pretty much thought of every possible thing that could go wrong and tried to have a contingency plan in case that it did. For example, the GoPro strapped to the OP's head because the OP knew inevitably they would try to claim that the OP broke their stuff in the move. And that was masterfully parried way in advance by having this GoPro setup already ready to go. There's even some funny elements of an Inception type of thinking where in the email, the OP tries to associate the treadmill with their overflow of stuff in the basement. I guess hoping there would be some sort of association, and there was. Because when they were angry about their stuff being moved around, they look at the bottom of the email and guess what? My treadmill is in the parking space. They just didn't realize that they were falling for the bait because the entire thing was recorded. If you look at this from a bird's eye view, it might sound like it's pretty straightforward, but you gotta remember all of the clever details that led to that outcome. The one thing that makes my stomach turn is the whole situation with their son Henry. I know it's been a little while since the time frame that this all took place in, but I'm hoping that the OP's actions ultimately did put Henry in a less dangerous position than the one that he was in with Karen and Bill, because no one, nowhere should have to grow up like that. So let me know how you guys see this whole revenge. Do you think it was going too far, or do you think it was just right? Jerk or not a jerk, and why? My old witch of a teacher insulted and put down students. I recorded nearly every insult. She then loses half of our papers and then accuses students of never turning in their work and proceeds to fail us. She blames us for turning in our papers late when we didn't, and she is the one who lost our papers but still fails us. So I collect all the receipts, I get all the audio, and I get the old witch teacher fired. Here's what I did. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. So this happened during senior year in high school 4 years ago. I had an English teacher named Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Smith, or how she liked to refer to herself, Dr. Smith. She didn't have a doctorate. She was a mean old bat and hated anything and everything. She was ugly inside and out. To give a mental image of what she looks like, her face sagged so much that it looked like she had a perpetual stroke. She had about 2 feet in between her eyebrows and her eyes. Imagine Ursula and Cruella de Vil had a child, and then that child had a baby with the devil. Then you get Mrs. Smith. None of the other English teachers liked her. There was nothing that they nor the administration could do due to her tenure. That is, until I became her student. Her teaching style included, but was not limited to, yelling at students, putting them down with petty insults, having us read to ourselves in the middle of class, kicking out students that were dozing off, then later falling asleep at her desk, not letting female students go to the restroom for very obvious reasons, and the occasional losing students' work and then accusing the students of not turning their work in. This last part is what crossed the line for me. You see, I wasn't a grade A student and I sucked at English, so I always played my cards right and made friends with everyone, students and teachers included. So when I struggled and I couldn't do something on my own, I let my charm save me and cash out on my months of being nice to everyone. However, no one could be friends with Mrs. Smith. I tried being polite. I was met with rudeness. I tried asking her how her morning was. I was met with silence and dead stares. I tried asking how I could improve in my writing skills. She told me that she wasn't willing to help. Within the first week of class, I knew I had met my match. So halfway through the semester, we're working on a big research paper. However, the day after the due date, Mrs. Smith had gone up to Illinois for some family issues for 2 weeks. Mind you, we turned in our papers both in hand and on turnin.com for plagiarism checking. No biggie. We won't get our grades back for a while, but at least we won't have to deal with her nonsense, or so we thought. A few days after she gets back, only about half of the students got their papers back. The other half, including myself, were sitting there staring and waiting, thinking that she was going to go back to her desk and pull out the remaining papers to return to her students. But no, she told us to take out our textbooks and start reading Beowulf. Some students, including myself, that didn't receive their papers tried to interject and inquire about our papers, and she snapped back with,
"You should have turned them in when they were due."
In unison, we responded with, "We did." Of course, she denies it, and within a few days, our grades drop immensely. At the end of the grading period, second 6 weeks, our report cards show a big fat F for English. Everyone is livid. And the worst part is, if you get anything below a C, you were moved to lower level English at the end of the semester. Between the zero from the paper that carried almost half of our grade and only a few weeks remaining in the semester, almost half of the class was doomed to fail out. Now, most of the students were happy with having to leave the class. There was not much they could do. But I was careful. Remember the teaching methods I mentioned? Well, Mrs. Smith thought because we were in a classroom that had no cameras, her behavior wasn't being recorded. She was dead wrong. From the second week on, I started recording audio on my phone every day from the moment I walked in the class until the moment I left. Every day. I caught every single one of her personal attacks on students on tape. When she fell asleep, I pulled out my phone and I recorded her. My pleas for help to improve and her refusal to help weren't left out either. Every day I would go home, cut the audio to keep the good parts, and every day my collection of dirt on her grew. And remember how I said we used turnin.com as well as paper? I had coordinated with all the other students who were going to fail to screenshot all of their turn-in receipts and send them to me as proof that they did turn in their work. When she decided to fail me for her mistake, she unleashed hell on herself. I went straight to the administration and scheduled a parent-teacher admin conference. A week later, my parents, the principal, the school counselor, and the head of the English department, and Mrs. Smith were all present. I started with how she had lost half of the class's work and most of us failed because of it. She denied it and again accused us of turning our work in late as well as cheating and a bunch of other nonsense and lies. I remained calm and just pulled out a folder that contained all of the screenshots from my backpack and handed it to the principal, who passed it to the head of the English department, who then asked Mrs. Smith to explain it. She instantly turned red in the face and started stuttering. Before she could get any words out, I say, "That's not all. Listen to this." I pull out my phone and start playing back the highlights from the semester. All the while I'm staring dead into Mrs. Smith's eyes while trying to hold back my grin. The suspense in the room would have killed Jason Statham. After the audio was finished, the principal looked at me and said, "I think we've seen enough," and asked me to leave. I sat outside of the conference room savoring the muffled yelling through the walls. I'm pretty sure I heard my dad utter the words "filthy C word," but I don't want to point fingers. The parent-teacher conference was on a Friday. I walked into class the following Monday to see an empty desk and a substitute teacher we all recognized and loved. 10 out of 10 would document everything again, but am I the jerk for making her lose her job? Even if there wasn't any recording at all, no audio recording, no video recording of her sleeping at her desk, none of that, how did she think she was going to get away with this, failing all of them, if they turned in their papers not only in hand, but electronically? That excuse of, "Oh, you turned it in late," goes right out the window when you can see timestamps on when the papers were turned in. So even if this student, the OP here, didn't have any of this proof, he could probably, in theory, go to the administration and say, "Hey, I promise you we turned it in before the deadline," audit her online submissions. But since he had so much proof, he didn't even need to get to that point. He just made it that much more simple. I'm not exactly sure what turns some teachers into these type of teachers. He calls her an old witch of a teacher again and again, but I can't possibly imagine that this teacher started off this way. Maybe it's just through years of operating in a poor education system where there's no incentives or rewards to do good, only punishments. Parents are coming after you, the district's coming after you, the kids don't respect you. All of that very well may be the case. It doesn't in any way excuse doing this to a bunch of students, losing their papers and blaming it on them. If the teacher lost the papers, that's fine. Things happen. You can't be perfect all the time and you can't control when certain things happen like that. But why not just say that? Say, "Hey, I lost the papers and this is what we're going to do instead." So let me know if you think the OP here went way too far by having the teacher lose her job, getting fired, or do you think it was justified? Jerk or not a jerk, and why? Should I tell my dying husband that I'm pregnant? I'm a 39-year-old female and I'm a mother to 2 teens, and I'm married to my 40-year-old husband, Steve. Sorry if this is all a mess. It's a bit of a messed up story. The marriage was basically one of convenience. Steve and I are both divorced and have been friends for decades. This past spring, Steve found out he has a rare cancer and the doctors gave him 6-ish months to live. 3 years ago, Steve sought out the daughter he had before his marriage from an old one-night stand in his 20s. When he found her, he discovered his daughter, 10 years old, named Sarah, was being horrifically mistreated by her mother, who had some kind of mental break, I guess. Anyway, he spent a year fighting for custody of this child that he hadn't seen since she was a baby, and eventually he got got it. Then spent 2-ish years working with her and getting her to heal and trust him, and surprise, he's dying. Anyway, the marriage thing was mostly about Sarah. We were advised that getting married would be the quickest and easiest way to make sure that I get custody of Sarah when Steve passes, in case Sarah's mother decides to try for custody again. As a side note, I do 100% want custody of Sarah, no question. I love her very, very much. She's already like a sister to my 2 kids and similar in age. The girl has gone from not owning a pair of shoes to being funny, smart, and all around a great kid. Anyway, we got married on paper, no wedding, and Steve and Sarah moved into my house. All the kids knew what was happening and were surprisingly cool with it. Yeah, so stuff happened between me and Steve. He confessed that he had been in love with me for a long time, and I kind of just said it all back to him, even though I'm not 100% sure of my feelings. It all just happened so fast, I don't know. Maybe that was wrong of me, but I wanted his time left to be happy, and I do care for him a lot. In the last few weeks, Steve has gone downhill very quickly. He is mostly at home except for a few short hospital stays. There are nurses that come by every day, and he is on strong pain medicine. So sometimes he's himself, but a lot of times he's really out of it. He's basically just here dying right in front of my eyes, and it sucks. And I just found out this week that I'm pregnant. I'm not sure I want to keep the baby. I'm old as dirt now with 3 teenage kids to think of. I'm strongly considering not telling Steve at all, but it feels very wrong. Telling him also feels wrong. He's more upset about leaving Sarah than he is about dying, so finding out that he's leaving another kid behind will probably only hurt him. Having the baby terminated feels wrong. Keeping the kid feels wrong. Nothing about this is okay, and I just really want a cigarette and a bottle of wine. Do I tell him or not? There's not enough room to explain me and Steve's relationship, but I'll give it a try, if only to sort it out for myself. We were friends. I got married young, big mistake. By the time I got divorced, he was married. After he got divorced, I was dealing with major health issues with my youngest. Then Sarah became his focus. Somewhere in that mess, we worked full-time jobs, buried 3 parents between us, made and received late night, sloshed calls to and from our exes. Well, sometimes the calls from my ex were from a jail cell, but it was always about time. There was just never time. This past year, being single parents together, we were a great team. Steve taught my oldest how to drive. Steve called me at work when his daughter got her cycle for the first time. That was funny. We each had each other's backs. I was starting to fall for him. It seemed like it was inevitable. It seemed right. It seemed like we finally had time. But we didn't. And then everything got rushed and pushed together and compressed, like someone was pushing fast forward on our lives, or the writers were rushing the ending to go work on Star Wars. So yeah, I love Steve, but the last few months have felt weird and artificial. I'm grieving for the relationship we could have had. We're supposed to have had more than the one we do have. Anyway, go hug your loved ones or whatever the moral is here. I said more than I meant to, and I'm crying again. Gross. Jumping into the future, there's an update. The decision. I am pretty sure I'm going to keep the baby and tell Steve, but I want to sleep on it first. Also, Steve is definitely out for the night. I'm gonna do the dishes, feed the cat, and go to bed. Update from the next day, I saw the OBGYN this morning way too early. Seriously, why are you even open at 8 a.m.? And here's the twist. I'm not a month pregnant. I am over 3 months pregnant. No, I'm not relieved. I'm pissed off that I had another choice taken away from me. I'm sick of my life feeling like a speeding train that I have no control over. I'm sick of everyone romanticizing everything. I'm tired of everyone saying I'm strong when I feel like I'm just doing the bare minimum to keep my head above water. I'm just gonna be angry for a while, thanks. So here's the update with the conversation. So, this is the actual conversation I had with my OBGYN less than 30 minutes ago. Is the old IUD in there dangerous to the baby? The doctor responded and said, I took that out 5 years ago when it expired. I said, I have no memory of that. Are you sure it was me? You said you didn't want another because all men are trash and you were planning on running away and joining a lesbian commune. Yeah, that sounds like me. In my defense, 5 years ago was when my younger child was having a tumor removed from his spine and his father showed up at the hospital with a 20-year-old girlfriend. So yeah, I may have blocked out a few things from around that time in my life. Then there was another update. Found out I'm like 15 weeks pregnant, not 4. The baby is a girl. She will be loved and a welcome part of our family. I will tell Steve. Last night when I posted posted, I was just sad and scared, and then so many people reframed everything in this romantic way, and I kind of got swept up in it and went to bed thinking I would choose to keep the baby and everything would be amazing and beautiful and blah blah blah. Then I woke up this morning and I was just kind of slap happy and in a daze. I found out that I'm way further along than I thought, and the reality of it just completely knocked the wind out of my sails. I'm mad that I never really had a choice. I'm mad that people think it's so romantic to have a dying man's baby inside of me, and I'm mad that I came home ready to talk to Steve and I can't because Sarah is skipping school again. And I get that she wants to spend time with her dad, but I made a deal with her that if she finishes this week, she can take next week off, and even worked it out with her teachers. And they've started Stranger Things season 3, and I just want to scream at Steve. Why are you starting a new show when you don't even know if you'll live to finish a sandwich? And of course, I can't yell that because you can't yell at dying people and tell them they're dying. Nor can you yell at them to tell them to just stop dying, which is what I really want to do. And he's all doped up and going on about how he's Hopper and Sarah is 11. No, you're not. You've sat at a desk and got fat the last 10 years and you've never punched anyone in your life. And you did not get that girl by leaving Eggos in the woods. You were in court for a year. I was there and it was hell, you jerk. I'm tired of everyone glossing over the terrible truth of everything in life like it's 90% just annoying maintenance of our terrible, gross meat sack bodies and paperworks, and you maybe get 10% of the real actual stuff that matters. And when that stuff happens, you're not even ready for it, good or bad, because you're tired and worried about bills and you're only half paying attention. And then later, you're like, oh yeah, that was the most romantic night of my life because you chose to remember it that way. When really, at that time, you were just thinking about how you wanted to take off your itchy pantyhose and wondering if you fed the cat. There were some comments that the original poster responded to, starting with, I'm blown away by your situation. I have a sense though, not to romanticize things, that if you keep this baby, which it sounds like you'll have to at this point, you will totally figure this out. You'll be a great mom to all 4 kids. Some good days, some bad days, but all 4 will be functioning adults, which is all we can really ask for. Good luck, and I'm sorry what you're going through. Followed up by, decide if you're keeping it. If you are, tell him. He can make videos and cards and do whatever that you can give to your child as they grow up. It would be awesome to know that even if my dad dies before I was born, he had so much love for me and he made these things for me. The OP responded saying, yes, I'm keeping it. Her. Of course I am. I'll tell him. We'll make videos and stuff. Did anyone else see that episode of Queer Eye where the mom had tried to write cards for her twin sons for every birthday before she died, and she couldn't finish them because it was too sad to think of all the things she was going to miss? Yeah, now I'm sad again. In response to somebody asking about how it went and if he was happy, the OP says, so I cuddled up to him and I showed him the ultrasound picture and said, this is our girl. He was quiet for a minute and then he said, she'll have a sister, which is not what I expected, but I agreed that yes, his daughter will have a sister. Then he asked if I was going to be okay, and I said, yeah, I'll be okay. And then we laid there quiet for a long time, and that was about it. He's been quiet today, but sometimes he's like that. I need to tell the kids and ask him about making a video or letters and cards, but I want to give him some time, some thinking space first. So I can't really answer about his emotional state yet. This is all I know so far. Tomorrow is my last day of work before I take FMLA, so there should be more time to talk in the coming days and weeks. And lastly, there is one final update. I'm not sure if anyone will ever check this again, but for anyone who finds it in the future, Steve passed away a few days ago. We're all okay. Things are okay. I'm doing fine. The paperwork is awful. I'm caught up on laundry. Everyone who read my comment that Steve and Sarah were watching Stranger Things season 3 and didn't warn me about the ending can die in a fire. It was traumatic. What a world. Was I the jerk for telling Steve before he died? This was such a difficult decision to make, but ultimately I think that she made the absolute correct decision. Even if she was trying to make his final moments more pleasant and easy, I think carrying the burden, the guilt of not telling him eventually would weigh heavy on her if it didn't right away. His first question was whether she would be okay, meaning would she be okay to raise all 4 kids, including a newborn baby. So even in this moment, he was worried about her. I mean, he did confess to being in love with her for his entire life, so of course he would be worried about her in a situation like this, since he knows he won't be there to help her. Even though the kids would obviously appreciate and want the cards and videos and everything, something about making those does sound very, very sad, because you have to consider you're going to be talking to the kids at every age that you're not going to see them. kind of like she described in that show. So in the process of making them, you have to live through all of the memories that you will never have with that kid, all of the kids. And that's heartbreaking. Hopefully he was able to make all of those before he passed, because obviously we saw in the final update that he did pass away at the end of this. So let me know your thoughts down below on this whole situation. Do you think that the OP made the right decision by telling Steve, or do you think that she, for some reason, shouldn't have? I deleted my boyfriend's RuneScape account because he cheated on me, or more accurately, I destroyed the account. I took all the effort he put into that account over the last 14 years and the billions of gold that he had in it and flushed it down the toilet. When he discovered that he just lost 14 years of work in the game, he lost it. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. My boyfriend and I had met online well over 6 years ago through an online game by the name of RuneScape. He was 14 and I was 17, but it had felt like we had been friends forever. We both played the game very often and connected through it, eventually leading us to starting a long-distance relationship. Things began to escalate as the years went on, and we began seeing each other in person every few months or so. We were about 1,500 miles apart, so one of our main priorities for the future was moving in together and closing the distance. My job had prevented us from doing that, but we had finally set a date for me to move in with him in December of this year. Our relationship never had any serious issues, and I was more than happy to have him in my life, as he was happy to have me. As I got older, I began to play RuneScape less and less, as work took up most of my time. He continued to play regularly, if not more than he had when I first met him. He could never really hold down a job and barely had an income, but I supported him throughout the years and even paid his rent from across the country after he moved out of his parents' house a few years ago. I never really minded it because he was a sweetheart, but we began to have problems. In November of last year, I couldn't help pay his monthly rent. I was short on cash after having to pay my own living expenses alongside car repairs and bills I owed to the state, and I just couldn't afford to support him at the time. When I called him one night to discuss it, he freaked out and started crying that he didn't want to live with his parents again. I tried calming him down and even suggested that I could help him find a temporary job until I could start providing for him again, but he wasn't having it. He claimed his parents would terrorize him if he returned home, hurt him, which I know for a fact isn't true because him and his parents have stayed with me several times. They've given him the world. I eventually did calm him down, but he remained passive aggressive the entire night, but we eventually hung up. Because I cared about him, I reached out to his father the next day and informed him that he would probably be moving back home after his lease expired that month. I explained how I wouldn't be able to afford paying for his living for a month or two, and if there were any local jobs he could work in order to, make an income. Apparently, a friend of his father needed help managing a small warehouse for his business and was looking to potentially hire my boyfriend for the season. It paid $15 an hour and was super easy, lifting boxes, sweeping the floors, and taking inventory. I brought it up to my boyfriend that same night and he was not having it. Not only did he not want to work in a quote crappy warehouse, but he didn't want to work at all. All he planned to do day in, day out was play RuneScape. I brought up a few other job listings I had found in his area and he immediately shot all of them down as well. He then had the audacity to comment about how he thinks I should work harder and possibly work a second job. I kept my composure and simply argued against it until we eventually hung up. I collapsed on my bed and cried for a good hour or two afterwards because of the intense emotional stress that I was under. Not only do I work 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, I'm also an industrial meteorologist. If I remember correctly, that's a lot more work than playing RuneScape every day and using my Hulu account. I really considered breaking up with him right at that moment, but I changed my mind and decided to give him another chance. Looking back on it, big mistake. I messaged him throughout the night and we sort of made up, but I was still a little uneasy about the entire event. He had moved back with his parents by the time December had come, and I began to help him look for jobs while he wasted his life away playing video games. I eventually persuaded him to start working at a small retail store near his house, and he thankfully began to make some money. I would still buy him video games and transfer him money like normal because I spoiled him, and our relationship began to feel somewhat okay again. Last month, both him and I put our money together to fly him across the US to stay with me for 4 days. We hadn't seen each other in person since last summer, so we were both looking forward to it. He arrived and we had a great time for the first few days because he could actually take me on dates for once with his new income. Everything was perfect until I caught a glimpse of his phone's lock screen while he was taking a shower. "When are you gonna leave her?" the Discord message read with 5 R's on the word her. I could have ran into the bathroom and snapped his neck in that moment, but I kept myself together as best I could without ending him. I never have felt so used, disrespected, or hated in my entire life. When he came out of the bathroom, I gave him a fake smile, but I genuinely hated him from that moment on. He could have dropped dead on the floor and I would have spit on him. I spent the remainder of the night watching him play RuneScape and I remained very quiet. He took notice of this and asked me if everything was okay. I lied and told him I was fine. When it came time to go to sleep, I let that jerk climb into bed with me and he tried to initiate doing the deed because it was our final night together. I rejected as politely as I could without tearing his member completely off. He was disappointed but went out like a light. Immediately after he went to sleep, I reached over and unplugged his phone and started digging through his messages with that girl. I feared I had misinterpreted the message I had seen, but I was completely right after all. Not only had he been cheating on me, he had been doing so for nearly 6 months, leading me to believe that he hooked up with another girl directly after I couldn't pay for his living in November. I scrolled through probably 100,000 messages and wanted to vomit my insides out by the end of it. He had talked trash about me, claimed I was emotionally abusive, just as he had done with his parents, and even sent this girl my private photos so that they could pick me apart physically together. When morning came, I had slept in because of how late I was up reading his messages. I woke up to find him on my computer playing RuneScape and eating my food. It was like all of our relationship had been wiped from my mind, and he was now an evil stranger sitting in my house. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to tear him apart and kick him out of my house and onto the street, but I didn't. In fact, I gave him as much love and attention as I could muster that morning because I wanted to leave things feeling normal between us. I dropped him off at the airport and we had a quick and somber goodbye before I left him forever, unbeknownst to him. I drove back home as calmly as I could before crying my eyes out in a mix of complete anger and emotional pain. I ended up kicking my bed frame so hard that the wood split and I had to buy another one recently. If only it were his face. I wanted to break his heart by the time I arrived back home, but I wanted it to really hurt. I logged into our joint RuneScape account that we had made several years ago, where him and I would work on training the same account and raising it almost like our baby. We had always joked that if we were ever to split up, he would take half of the account's bank contents and I would take the rest. I took my half and transferred it into my main account before taking his half and giving it away to random people throughout the game. Every last bit of it. Even items I couldn't normally trade away. I used a spell to convert the items into coins, which I then gave away as well. The bank was now empty. It then occurred to me that I had the credentials to his main account. They were written down on my desk, as he would frequently have me train his farming skill every so often. I didn't hesitate at all and logged into his precious 14-year-old RuneScape account, and I immediately took out all of the contents of his bank and sold it all on the Grand Exchange, a marketplace in the game. It took an extremely long time to clear out his bank, but he would still be flying home for about another 4 hours, so I had plenty of time. By the time I had sold/destroyed everything, I had 4 stacks of coins totaling over 8.5 billion. Now, what to spend it on? I wanted to waste his life earnings on the most useless, stupid thing I could think of besides him. I logged back into my main account to reach out to a friend of mine that collects massive stacks of burnt food. For the unaware, burnt food in RuneScape has no use. You can't unburn them, eat them, or even sell them on the Grand Exchange. They are, however, tradable amongst players. I've always poked fun at this guy for collecting burnt food, but I was now more thankful than ever to make his acquaintance in my revenge. I asked him what the most obscure, unwanted item was of the burnt food variety, and he replied, burnt spider. Lo and behold, he had roughly 6,000 of that item. Spider on a shaft, burnt, is what it was called. The 6,000 of those in his bank, he was willing to sell me. Feeling generous with my ex-boyfriend's coins, I gave my friend the full stack of 2.147 billion coins and left a very happy customer. I dropped the 6,083 33 burnt spiders in his bank, but still had about 6 billion coins left to spend. With my remaining money, I decided to treat myself. I went onto the Grand Exchange and ended up going on a shopping spree. The first thing I bought were 100 bonds. If you're not familiar, a bond in RuneScape grants you 14 days of in-game membership. After trading all my 100 bonds to my account, I now have almost 4 years membership paid for me. I spent a majority of his coins on extremely nice armor and weapons, all of which went straight into my account. He still had about an extra billion, so I spent it on the supplies I needed to level up an expensive skill of mine. By the end of the afternoon, he was left with a measly 150,000 coins in his bank, all of which I gave away to a guy cooking pizzas outside of the exchange. Nothing was left. So I decided to pick up a pile of bones off the ground and leave it solely in his bank. It might sound petty, but I laughed for a while. Now I know what you're thinking. This is so cruel. You ruined tens of thousands of hours that he had put into a game. Well, it was time he learned that I can be a bee, a mean bee. On top of spending every last coin he had ever made, I leveled up his defense skill. That might not sound bad. In fact, it sounds like a good thing. I helped his account progress, right? Well, no. Unfortunately for my ex, he had what players commonly refer to as a pure account, meaning he never ever dared to level his defense skill from level 1 in order to keep the lowest defense stats but have high offensive stats. Well, not anymore. Have fun with your permanent level 6 defense. Cycling through hundreds of possible forms of revenge in my head, I settled on getting rid of his house. It's quite an achievement in RuneScape to have a nice house of your own. In fact, he had one of the nicest I had ever seen in the game. In order to have built it, he must have spent well over a few billion coins. Too bad I had disassembled it all in a matter of minutes, deleting it all into cyberspace. And there's no insurance either. He's going to have to rebuy everything with his non-existent money if he wants to buy a new house. Bye bye, Casa de Cheater. Scrolling through his friends list, I decided to act as him and pay a visit to his friends who were currently online and admit that I had cheated on my girlfriend and was fully proud of it. If his friends hadn't removed him by that point, I removed them. All of them. Lastly, to add a beautiful little cherry to this revenge-filled cake, I changed his username. You're able to change your username once a month on RuneScape, so I changed his to let everyone know that he's a dirty cheater. I obviously won't drop his username here, but I did the best I could to embarrass him with a 12-character limit. He should be able to reclaim his previous username in about 3 weeks, but if he waits too long, I'll be able to swipe it and slap it on a throwaway account of my own forever. When he found out, he sent me a very hateful and aggressive message later that night, followed by pictures of him crying. I wrote him a sincere message officially ending the relationship, while also scaring him away by threatening to take him to court over sharing my private photos and possibly filing a cease and desist if he were to contact me anytime soon. I don't plan on doing any of that, I just don't want to speak to him ever again. So, am I the jerk? This was truly a scorched earth revenge. You might not think so because RuneScape is just a game, but this is obviously what this guy cared about the most for the last 14 years. I mean, he was even playing it while he was cross-country in the OP's house and kept playing it when he thought something was wrong because she was silent. That pretty much speaks to how much he valued this game and all the progress he had made over the last 14 years. I think the thing that probably twists the knife the most out of all of this is the fact that she made his defense level 6. So it's not even like he has a ton of defense anymore, he's just not pure anymore. I don't play RuneScape at all, but I understand what she's saying here. That's gotta be an excruciating thing to look at when you've had the account pure for so long. Because you probably get a lot of props for having a level 1 defense skill, I'm assuming, but nobody's gonna care if you're level 6. In other words, it sounds like it's probably not strong enough to matter, but it's not low enough that anyone's gonna give you props for it, which I assume is the only reason why you would do that. If you guys play RuneScape, you can let me know down below. And lastly, if she could convert these into bonds, she could have just converted everything into bonds and then just given herself even more years of free RuneScape, but I think she just wanted to get creative with this revenge, and she doesn't really sound like she plays RuneScape anymore, so 4 years itself is probably more than she'll ever use of the playtime that she'll get from the bonds. And if this all seems like it doesn't mean anything to you, just imagine this was the thing that you cared about the most in your life, and somebody went and did all of this. I do feel really bad for the OP because she's obviously really hurt by this and betrayed and had wasted a lot of time by this guy not just being upfront and telling her that he was doing this behind her back. But let me know your thoughts on this whole situation. situation. Do you think this revenge was too far, destroying 14 years of progress on his RuneScape account? Or was it justified? Jerk or not a jerk, and why? Before we jump into the next story, if you haven't already, you can join the Discord via the link down below in the description. Am I the jerk for pointing at the kitchen when my mother-in-law asked, "Where's our dinner?" My husband had a serious injury weeks ago. He's bedridden and his family comes to see him every day. My mother-in-law keeps drilling what I need to do to make my husband comfortable, but does nothing to help. She just visits every day and sits around expecting to be fed and entertained. Sometimes brother-in-law, his wife, and kids join them and turn the house into a mess. Yesterday, my mother-in-law, her husband, and son came again. They checked on my husband, then went to sit in the living room for hours. I served them coffee and a croissant. Hours later, my husband threw up again. The second time, I had to take care of changing his clothes and cleaning the sheets to avoid infections. I was exhausted. I came downstairs and my mother-in-law looked at me and said,
Hey, where's our dinner?
I was shocked that after seeing me go up and downstairs so many times and cleaning and bringing new sheets and running around trying to go into the washing machine, that she'd expect me to prepare dinner. I'd already eaten a sandwich at 6 and yogurt. I have problems with my stomach and stress and pregnancy made it worse. I'm 4 months in. I pointed at the kitchen and told her to help herself out. She gave me a look, then said she didn't expect me to ask her to cook dinner in my house. I said I didn't expect her to ask me to cook dinner while I'm taking care of her son. She started arguing about the way I spoke about my husband, saying as his partner, this is the least I could do, and called me unhinged for throwing in her face that I'm helping my husband. She got her husband involved, asking what his thoughts were on me making guests go hungry and forcing them to cook for themselves when this is supposed to be my duty as a host and homeowner. My father-in-law said that they could order food and call it a day, and he yelled at my younger brother-in-law to stop playing on his phone and order food, but my mother-in-law got mad and lashed out, criticizing me, saying that I wasn't up to the challenge of taking care of my home and my guests like an adult. I lost it on her and told them to leave since she kept yelling, disrupting my husband's sleep. She left after, saying she felt sorry for her son and grandbaby. With an aggressive wife and mother like me, she told everyone, and my older brother-in-law said he understood I had a lot on my plate, but lectured me about how I should have respect for his mom who was a guest, repeatedly saying if that was his wife, she wouldn't have acted this way, and that I shouldn't use taking care of my husband against them. He asked me to apologize, but I didn't. For more information on my husband, he suffers from 2 major injuries and he's got a long recovery ahead. Right now, there's so much pressure to take care of him while keeping up with house chores and work. My mom and sister help out, but not my mother-in-law. She claimed that when I told them to leave, I was refusing to let her see her sick son, but I'd never do that. I lost a loved one before seeing them, so I understand her fear, but my brother-in-law thought that that was my goal. And for the record, I live in the United States in the South. Am I the jerk? It's hard to imagine the family being so oblivious that they would just come into the living room and sit there, seeing that she's doing all this stuff and still demand a meal. I think the more normal, obvious thing would be to try and offer help and say, hey, how about we make you a meal? How about we try and help you out? Maybe they perceive the situation being something that wouldn't overwhelm them or stress them out, but they can clearly see that the wife here, the OP, is in fact stressed out and overwhelmed, even if they wouldn't be in this situation, or at least that's what they would think. So rather than trying to start arguments and complain about why there's not food being served to them while the husband is sick, they should just help out. I'm guessing the OP included that little fact about this taking place in the South for a reason, I guess to imply that maybe this is not the culture of the South, maybe it's more normal to still serve guests even though you have all this other stuff going on. But even looking past that, it seems obvious that she just needs help in this situation. So let me know how you would handle the situation if you were the OP and this was your family and this was the argument that you were in, and of course, jerk or not a jerk, and why. An entitled mother shreds my $30 Magic the Gathering card because I wouldn't give it to her 10-year-old son. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I'm a 21-year-old male and I was at the local game shop today to sell my Magic the Gathering card. This happened yesterday. I had just finished talking to the owner to sell my card when the entitled mom walked up to the counter I was at with her son.
You should give that card to my son. You're too old to play with cards.
Ma'am, if you you had approached me earlier, I would have either traded or sold the card to him, but I've already made a deal with this store.
Now you're an adult. You should just give this card to my son.
At this point, I look at her young son. He's a young kid. I should also mention that the card I'm selling is a foil Olivia Crimson Bride showcase. For those that don't know, this card shows a lot of cleavage for a Magic the Gathering card. Ma'am, how old is your son?
He's 10. How old are you?
I'm 21 years old. I also don't think this card is appropriate for his age. I show her the card to make my point.
No, it's fine. Just give it to him.
As I already said, I can't do that as I already committed to selling this shop my card. At this point, the store owner cuts me off. Ma'am, if you want this card, you can buy it from us.
No! If my son can't have this card, then you can't have it either.
At this point, she grabs the card from my hand, and then all I hear is the sound of the card ripping. I look at this woman and the card torn in her hands. I start tearing into her, cursing her out. While I'm doing this, the store owner calls the police. They arrive 5 minutes later. The first thing the cops do is separate me and the entitled mom before getting our statements. The owner also decides to pull the video of the incident. After the police have talked with me and the owner, they are now starting to talk with the entitled mom. Once they finish talking with her, they walk out of the store and one of the officers talks to me and the owner. He tells us that the woman is going to be escorted from the premises, and if the owner wants, they will be trespassed and no longer allowed at the store. This is when the owner says that he would like to do that, and the woman has caused issues for him in the past. The cop also says that the woman has been given a ticket for destruction of private property and disturbing the peace. The owner of the store then tells me that he will be going after this woman in court. He also gave me money for my card so that way he can add it onto the amount that he's trying to go after her for or claim it on his insurance. He told me that he's going to try and sue her for harassments because she has done this in the past. The value of the card that she destroyed and any legal fees needed to take her to court. So should I have just given her the card? This story is particularly interesting to me because Magic the Gathering is probably my most played game, especially at the moment. I know exactly the card that he's talking about here, and this is really weird that she just wants the kid to have this card even though he doesn't even seem like he's interested in this card. I mean, the kid didn't even ask for this card. The mom just wants to give it to him. And also, she's in a local game shop, so of course there's going to be 21-year-old guys playing Magic the Gathering and other games there. That's the point of this shop. It's not a kid's store. This card isn't the most expensive card of all time, but still, nobody wants to have their property taken from them and ripped in front of their face when they're about to receive money for that property. He says at the time the card was worth $30, which is not a cheap card either. I know some of you guys probably would have gone buck wild if this happened to you as you were in the process of selling your cards, but let me know what you would have done if this was your card in this situation down below. And also, this is a good time to mention that the Am I the Jerk Discord server is now live. The link will be in the description so you can come by, discuss the stories, submit your stories, and there's even a magic section. Am I the jerk for not wanting to attend a Game of Thrones themed wedding? My friend Lexa is getting married soon. She and her husband are extreme Game of Thrones fans. They've watched the show 5+ times. Their house is decked out with Game of Thrones themed decorations, accessories, etc. Because of their shared love of Game of Thrones, Lexa and her fiancé decided to have a Game of Thrones themed wedding. I am perfectly fine with the idea of a themed wedding. I'm even okay with the Game of Thrones dress and costume for the wedding. The only thing I can't seem to get behind is the fact that the majority of the wedding will be conducted in High Valyrian. For those that don't know, it's a made-up language from Game of Thrones. Her wedding is also a destination wedding, and I'm finding it hard to justify going out of my way to go to a wedding that's not even in a real language that I wouldn't be able to understand at all. I mentioned that I was having doubts to Lexa, and she got really mad at me because I had originally said I could go before I knew it was in High Valyrian. She's also been sending me links to learn High Valyrian on Duolingo, and I feel like even if I did show up, she would be mad at me for not learning this language. The reception will also be in High Valyrian, and all the speeches and toasts are expected to be in High Valyrian too. So would I be the jerk for not wanting to go to her Game of Thrones themed wedding? This actually sounds awesome. I would be much more interested to go to this wedding over pretty much any other wedding ever, as long as it doesn't turn out to be the red wedding, or the theme is specifically that of the red wedding. All you got to do is look at the playlist and see if they put Reigns of Castamere on there, and if not, you're good to go. About learning High Valyrian on Duolingo, apparently that's an actual thing. They really do offer High Valyrian as a language you can learn on Duolingo, which is strange because there's a lot of real-world languages that Duolingo doesn't have, but I guess maybe High Valyrian is more popular than a lot of those real languages. So as long as she's not committing to giving one of these speeches in High Valerian, this will be an awesome experience. But how do you see this down below? And jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for taking my friend to court after she kicked me out of the bridal party for cutting my hair? For my friend's 3-day wedding, I had to buy 3 different dresses, including alterations, and specific shoes which totaled over $700. She also wanted specific hairstyles for each day. Unfortunately, starting in March, my hair started to deteriorate. Due to health reasons, my hair was falling out in chunks, and in May, I made the difficult decision to cut my hair. I told the bride about my decision 2 weeks before the wedding, and she didn't say anything bad. The following week, she came over to my house, and when she was about to leave, she brought up that she was concerned about my haircut, and I told her it would look good, even though it wouldn't be uniform with the other bridesmaids. The following day, I received this message. After our recent conversations, I'd like to remind you of my boundaries. I've been very accommodating and graceful, but I can't allow you to disrespect me. As you know, my wedding is something I've dreamt of for many years. My husband and I have invested a lot of money into the video and photos of this day, and as we reflect on this day in the future, we want to see our vision reflected in the memories. Since I asked each of you to be bridesmaids in 2019, I've been very clearly and very communicative in my request. The timing of your decision to cut your hair and not inform me in advance is very upsetting to me. I would have felt respected if you had communicated with me more than a week prior to the wedding, so we could have worked together to find a collaborative solution. Your inconsistencies have concerned me, and while I sympathize with your health concerns, I'm not willing to compromise my vision to accommodate you or anyone else when you could have informed me in advance, and we could have found a better solution. Since this is something you can no longer fully commit to, I need you to please step down from participating in my wedding. This was 3 days before the wedding. I immediately sent her and her husband an invoice asking them to reimburse for the dresses and shoes, keeping in mind that one of the dresses is still in her possession even though I paid for it. Neither of them replied, and I decided to take it to court. I was told I was inconsistent and selfish after I spent the past 2 weeks helping her plan the wedding shower. I worked with another bridesmaid to surprise her with a wedding shower after our bachelorette trip had to be canceled. I spent hours helping her out with wedding details. When she asked me to help her tone up before the wedding, I sent her a personalized workout program and even went with her to the gym to show her the ropes. When I agreed to be her bridesmaid, I said I was more than willing to oblige with what she asked, even if at times it was a lot of time and money. So am I the jerk for taking her to court because she kicked me out for cutting my hair? Wow, this friend, the bride who's getting married here, seems very heartless based on everything that we've seen here. The OP made a commitment to this wedding before she knew this whole health concern was going to happen, and now her hair is falling out in clumps. That's not something anyone chooses to have happen to them. What other choice did the OP have here? She didn't want her hair to fall out in clumps, but somehow the bride is interpreting that as a form of disrespect to her and her husband for their wedding. I'm sure the OP is already burdened with the sadness or just any emotions that have to do with dealing with this on her own before having the finger pointed at her saying that she's the one who disrespected the whole wedding by not sticking to the plan. Would it have softened things a bit if the OP would have went to the bride and said, hey, my hair is going in this direction because of my health issues before cutting the hair? That might have helped a little bit, but that probably wasn't the first thing on the OP's mind when this was happening. And also, I wouldn't be surprised if the outcome ended up being the exact same. But let me know how you would handle the situation down below. Do you think that suing the bride for the $700 that's owed is going too far right before her wedding? Or do you think it's justified because she spent all this money out of pocket and now for a reason outside of her control, she's not even able to use the dress and shoes that she got for this wedding? Let me know your thoughts down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for not attending my sister's wedding after telling her that I would go? My 34-year-old sister got married last week. When she got engaged 6 months ago, she told me she wanted me to be a bridesmaid. I agreed, how could I not? The other bridesmaids were all pretty rich. Sis and groom weren't planning to hold back on anything when it came to the wedding because they had a pretty big budget. The groom's from a wealthy family. There wasn't a problem until 3 months before the wedding when she and her friends, the other bridesmaids, were picking out dresses. The dresses cost $300 each and they were so pretty. They were pastel pink with yellow embroidered roses on them, handmade. I am a 21-year-old female and I'm a college student and I'm broke. I couldn't afford a dress that cost that much, especially since I was only going to wear it once. I told my sister immediately. So she said she'd pay $150 and I could pay the rest myself. She sent me the money, and since there were still 3 months before the wedding, she said I had to salvage something. Now, $150, that's like 2 weeks worth of groceries. I decided to keep the money she'd given to me myself because I sure as as heck wasn't going to spend another $150 on some dress. My sister never asked me about the dress again until a week before the wedding. I told her I hadn't bought it and spent it on things that I actually needed. She was pissed, saying there wasn't enough time to order a new dress. She told me that I couldn't be a bridesmaid without it. I didn't show up to the wedding for obvious reasons. She called me after, asking me where I was and calling me a jerk and a liar. What did I do that was even remotely jerkish? I'm broke and there's no way I could afford such an expensive dress. Am I the jerk? Huh? Why didn't the OP here just tell the sister, hey, $150 is not enough money. I don't have enough money for the rest of the dress. If that was the case, maybe then there would have been some sort of solution, but she just basically took the money and spent it on whatever she wanted and didn't say anything until it was too late? How could you possibly have justified that? If the sister didn't want to pay the full $300 amount, the other $150, at least give her back the money that she gave you. How could you possibly interpret that to mean, oh, I guess I get to keep this $150? What's probably ended up happening here is the OP has permanently severed, or if not severed, at least damaged the relationship with her sister for life here. Not necessarily because of the money only, but also because, as the sister said, she's a liar. She lied about the whole situation. She made her think that she was going to buy the dress with the money, and not only did she not do that, but she kept the money without saying anything. And now returning the money is probably not going to even be enough to solve this because the wedding has come and gone. It's too late to make up for it. There's not going to be a second wedding. If this was your sister and she did this to you, how would you respond to this? Let me know down below in jerk or not a jerk and why. Am I the jerk for throwing away my pad at an acquaintance's house? I met a dude on Tinder a few weeks ago and we really seemed to hit it off. We had a lot of the same hobbies and I felt a spark between us that I'm sure he felt too. After we got past the talking phase, we decided to meet at his house for coffee. It was great when I arrived. We talked loads and even held hands. However, I was on the third day of my cycle, and after a couple of hours I needed to change my pad. I asked for the bathroom and he directs me towards it. After I finished changing, I noticed that his trash can is pretty full. I'm not sure what to do, so I wrap it in toilet paper and sort of smooth it into the trash so it isn't sitting on the edge. We hang out for about an hour more and he excuses himself to the bathroom. A few minutes pass by and he comes out and says that he needs to talk to me. He says I shouldn't have thrown away my pad because he might touch it when taking out the trash and that it was gross and unsanitary. Apparently, he saw that the trash looked different, unwrapped the toilet paper, and saw my used pad. I was mortified. I apologized profusely, and he seemed to take it well. He just told me not to do it again, and if I needed to, just walk a few blocks away to a nearby grocery store to change. I left after that, not thinking too much about it. However, I've recounted the events to a few friends, and they think he is a major jerk. I'm not entirely sure. He was really kind about it and didn't seem to get angry, but also I'm starting to see their point too. It's just a normal body process for people with a uterus, and I agree. It should be more normalized. I'm just not sure what to think, and any judgment would be greatly appreciated. Am I the jerk? This is just a normal bodily function. It's not like she took it and smeared it all over the walls and threw it on the ground. She put it in a trash bin where trash goes. And assuming that he has a small trash bag in his bathroom trash can, the only possible reason why he would end up touching it by accident is because his trash is overflowing because he hasn't emptied it. But if he doesn't have a bag, then that trash bin is probably already pretty disgusting to begin with. The OP here says that he was kind about it, so that's obviously better than the alternative of him coming out raging and screaming about this, but clearly this bothered him. I just don't really get why. Let me know down below if something like this would bother you, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for putting a Ziploc bag of my roommate's poop on his bed after he pooped in the bidet? I'm in a university and have been living in a house with 4 of my friends, all 21 or 22-year-old males, for 4 years. We are all great friends and get along well most of the time. However, our one roommate, Darren, is quite messy. Darren regularly runs a tornado through the house after it's just been cleaned and leaves rotting food everywhere. We share the bathroom upstairs and he never cleans it. He also does stupid things while sloshed and doesn't take responsibility. Last year, he threw out a perfectly good blender because he got so puffed up that he forgot to plug it in before turning it on and therefore thought it was broken. When called out on his behavior, Darren will usually deny it or make excuses. He used to not be so bad, but his irresponsible behavior has escalated over the past year. Yesterday, however, is where I drew the line. On Thursday night, Darren had a couple of friends over and they got sloshed. The rest of my roommates weren't home. I had to get up at 6 a.m. for work, so I asked them to keep it down. They didn't, but I managed to fall asleep despite the noise. Sometime in the night, I woke up to them talking near my room. I heard Darren say something about him pooping in the bidet. My bedroom is beside the washroom, but I was half asleep and I figured I heard wrong. I just fell back to sleep. On Friday morning, I woke up for work and there was a turd in the bidet. I wasn't about to clean it, especially not at 6 a.m. I thought maybe he was just incredibly sloshed and he'd clean it up when he woke up. When I got back to my house around 7 p.m. though, the turd was still in the bidet. I knew Darren was home because I could hear him gaming in his room. Also, the shower had clearly been used, meaning he showered with his turd in the bidet. I knew he was going to leave soon, so when he did, I put on some gloves, put his poop in a bag, and put it on his pillow. When he got home later that night, he was really upset and yelling about how gross it was that I put poop on his pillow. I told him it was gross of him not only to poop in our bidet, but to leave it there for a whole day. I also argued that I could have put the poop directly on his pillow, but I didn't. He said that he would have cleaned it up eventually and that I should have just texted him first. He put the bag of turd back in the bidet again just to prove a point, and now we're at a crossroads. It's sitting in the bidet as I type this, and he says if I don't apologize, he'll put it in my bed. Two of our roommates and my girlfriend are on my side and say that he had it coming and shouldn't have been such a pig. My other two roommates think that I took it too far and should have just texted him to clean up his poop first, which makes me think that maybe I could be the jerk. But I think he should have just done it on his own. I am not his mother. All things considered, am I the jerk? This would have been an easy everyone is the jerk in this situation, but the scales were tipped towards Darren being the jerk when he took the poop back and put it in the bidet again. What's the next step after this? They start picking up the poop and throwing it at each other like monkeys? Obviously, pooping in the bidet was wrong, and he was laughing about it or joking about it sounds like. Then the OP takes the poop and puts it on his pillow, which is also wrong, but then he takes it and puts it back? Regardless of who's the jerk or not in this situation, the OP taking the poop and putting it on the pillow did not solve anything at all. It just made this whole situation worse, because now he has people in the house that are not even on his side because they think he went too far. Whereas if he just would have said, hey, why did you do this? Pretty much no one in the house would not agree that that was a pretty messed up thing to do. If you came home one day and you found out that your roommate put poop on your pillow in a little Ziploc bag, how would you react? Let me know down below on jerk or not a jerk and why. Am I the jerk for being uncomfortable with my girlfriend being naked around her dog? I'm a 33-year-old male and my girlfriend who's 30 hates clothes, to the point where she actively researched nudist colonies, and if it wasn't for having to occasionally go to the office, she would have moved there long before she met me. So of course she's always naked around the house, which for me is nice. She's got a rockin' bod. The issue is her 2-year-old dog. The dog is a super cute and fluffy Great Pyrenees, very well trained, 10 out of 10, a good girl. My girlfriend was there when her friend brought the heavily pregnant mom home from the pound, was there at the birth, and fell in love immediately. She sees that dog as the closest thing she'll ever have to a kid due to medical issues. However, my girlfriend is just always naked at home, playing with the dog, naked, cuddling on the couch, naked. She keeps a slip dress by the door for walks, but otherwise naked. And it's weird, right? I tried to be subtle, but the other day I finally sat down with her and pointed out that yes, she's trained the dog not to sniff human butts, but it's still like something out of an illegal adult movie for her to be naked with an animal all the time. Wow, she got pissed, asking me to leave. I tried talking sense into her, but she wasn't listening to it. I finally left her house, and once I got back to my apartment, I tried texting one of her friends, but she blew up at me saying that I was a jerk. My girlfriend is now radio silent. I'm not jealous of a literal female dog. I know my girlfriend isn't doing anything, but it's still weird. I do see being naked is that way, since the only times that I'm naked are when I'm showering or, well, doing the deed. I respect that my girlfriend doesn't feel the same way, but I'll get up to use the bathroom or something and come back to the dog in my spot on the couch, asleep with her head on my girlfriend's naked thigh. That's just so weird. How is it not? So am I the jerk? It's not that weird. As the OP already said here, she's not doing anything weird with the dog. And what did the OP think we were doing back in hunter and gatherer times, that we're always fully clothed from head to toe, that there's never a single moment where there's an animal that's with us would see us not fully clothed? I think it's one of those cases where something feels normal, therefore it must be right, but it's not that serious. She doesn't have a problem with it, the dog doesn't have a problem with it, and if the girlfriend did get as upset as the OP described here, then she probably took it to mean that he was implying that she was doing something naughty with the dog, which is an even more weird thing than just living your life with this dog in the way you want to that's not hurting anybody. But maybe you see this completely differently. Maybe you think this is the weirdest thing ever. If so, let me know your thoughts down below, and jerk or not a jerk and why. I'm a pregnant 28-year-old woman, and my husband told me he's in love with my sister. I don't know why this is happening to me. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. My sister and I had a terrible life growing up with a passive mother and a terrorizing stepfather. My sister was my protector and role model since none of the adults were. She tried to shift my stepdad's hurtful and horrible treatment on her when he got sloshed so that he wouldn't hurt me. When she left for college, she let me stay in her bed while she slept on the floor in her student room the days I managed to run away from home. When I turned 16, she let me move in with her permanently. We never saw our parents again. My husband is very similar to my sister. They're both very calm and kind, both very intelligent. They have the same sense of humor, love the same music, books, movies, and games. It's like a weird perverted thing that I found the male version of my sister to fall in love with. They get along very well, and that was so important to me because they're my only family. We got married a year ago, after 6 years together, and I'm 27 weeks pregnant now with our first baby. My sister, who's 32 by the way, met her boyfriend who's 30 a few years ago. He got along very well with me and my husband, although I always felt that my husband never really liked the guy. When I asked him once why he didn't like him, he just got flustered and told me that he didn't know it was noticeable and apologized. He told me he just didn't think he was good enough for her. Her boyfriend proposed to her last night, to my sister. We were just having pizzas and they were having brewskis in my sister's balcony, and the boyfriend just suddenly went down on his knees and took out a ring. She was very surprised, but happy all the same and said yes. When we went back home, my husband was a little bit tipsy. He told me he wasn't tired and that he was gonna have one more brewski and watch TV and that I should go to bed. I went back to the living area and he was sitting there crying. I asked him what was going on and he told me that he was in love with my sister, has been for years, and that he knew how wrong this was. He told me that he loved me very much and promised to be a good husband and father to our daughter. He slept on the couch. He's still sleeping now. I am shocked and full of anxiety. I don't know what to do or how to feel about this. My sister, should I tell her? Nothing can be the same again, but she's my only family and my best friend. And my husband, is this over? I have been so blind. Now I see everything. Of course he's in love with her. How could I be shocked now? Can I save this marriage and my baby? I promised her a better life than the one I had. I promised her kind and loving parents. I can't let her come into this world with estranged parents and new people in their lives. What can I do? Then there was an update. He is awake now and I have spoken to him. He apologized for hurting me last night. He said that he just felt despair, like he had something very beloved and important in his life that he lost and he was mourning it. He told me that he loved me very much and he wanted for this to work for us and the baby. I asked him if he loved her more than he loved me, and he just said it's a different type of love. I asked him if he could choose between me or her, and he said that he would choose me. I asked him if he thought that she was more beautiful, and he said that I'm conventionally more attractive. I asked him if he has stayed with me all of these years to be near her. He said I was being unfair to him because he did love me. I asked him if he's okay never seeing her again. He teared up, but then said he would do anything to save this marriage. He then added that he never really had a mother or a female figure in his life. That's probably why he was attached to her, because she is very warm and loving. I asked him, do you love her as a mother figure or do you want to sleep with her? He didn't want to answer. I asked him if he fantasized about her while sleeping with me. He refused to answer at first, but then said, why are you doing this to yourself? I asked him if he will lose interest in me if she's out of our lives and it's just us. He looked like he was thinking about this for the first time, and then he said that he chose me and my baby. He wants to start therapy and counseling because he thinks this marriage is salvageable. The next update. We had a dinner with my sister and her new fiancé. My husband was unusually silent and didn't initiate any talk with my sister, and he barely looked at her. It was a nice dinner. My sister is too happy to notice anything with her engagement and trip tomorrow. Before she went, however, my husband hugged her longer than usual. He told her he was happy for her and wished her a great trip. All while hugging her, then he held her hand and told her, I didn't congratulate you properly yesterday because I was sloshed. And then he congratulated her again. He started tearing up again. Then he hugged my sister's fiancé and congratulated him. He was silent on our way home. He told me he loved me when we got back and that he will do anything to make this work, that I shouldn't make any decisions while hurt. We are starting couples therapy. I want him to be 100% honest. He asked me not to tell anyone about his confession because it meant nothing. I told him that I didn't want my sister around anymore if I would give him a chance. He asked me how this would work when we're always together. She will suspect something and he doesn't want me to tell her because he's embarrassed. I told him he could just minimize his interactions with her. I told him to sleep on the couch again tonight because I haven't made up my mind about my next move yet, and that until then, it's the couch for him. Then there was another update about her decision. I don't think I have enough information to make a new post, but I have gone down through all the comments. I asked my husband for separation because I need to be in my own space to make my decision. We're also starting marriage counseling. Whether we stay together or not, I want to know everything that he has been withholding from me. He thinks I'm torturing myself, but he's wrong. I'm tortured with half-truths. With marriage counseling, I hope I could get to the bottom of his feelings in a safe environment. He cried when I told him that I wanted to separate. He told me he has lost everything in one day because of a sloshed, tipsy confession that meant nothing. He loves me and wants to be with me. He suggested that we move away. He has had job offers in other cities on several occasions. He said this could be our new start. We were renovating the basement this summer to make it a guest room because our current guest room is being turned into a baby room. He will live in the basement. It has separate entrances and the mini kitchen is almost finished. I have decided not to tell my sister about any of this. This is my battle in my marriage. I love my sister so much, but I'll be honest here. I resent her. I'm jealous of her and I think I always have been jealous of her. She's a way better person than I am. I hate that I've never had the chance to return the favor as she's always been perfect and never needed help. I resent that she isn't as angry as I am about the injustice that we had to endure. I hate that she's so good to me and my husband. I hate that she sees how much of a better person she is, and I hate that I don't blame her for him loving her instead of me. And here is the aftermath to the whole situation of my husband confessing to being in love with my sister. Hi, I was here about a month ago with my woe about my husband breaking down and confessing that he was in love with my sister and has been for years. The short version is that we're getting a divorce and that he doesn't want to have anything to do with our daughter. After my sister's engagement and his confession, he made me a promise that he will love me and that he's going to do all in his power to be a good and loving husband and father. He didn't want me to tell my sister anything because he was embarrassed, and we slowly started to plan a future together in another city. He was already getting a better job offer in the other city, and now he thought it was time to move on. I agreed. We started marriage counseling. I told my sister that we were moving and she was very distraught, but she, as always, didn't object and supported me. I didn't know if she felt it was weird that my husband wasn't hanging with us anymore, but she never asked. She was probably just busy with her own happiness and the changes in her life. After her vacation, she came home and told me everything. She was pregnant and she was glowing. And that was the reason for this sudden engagement. Her fiancé wanted to get married before the baby was born. She asked me to keep it a secret. She probably didn't mean even for my husband, but I kept it a secret anyway, because she was waiting for the second trimester to make the announcement. She finally broke down crying, however, about me moving away when she needed me the most, but then later apologized for being selfish. She understood that we needed to provide the best life for my daughter, including finding better jobs elsewhere. I cried for a whole week. A week ago, my husband was in a job interview in the other city, and he was going to stay there for the week to sign a lease to a new apartment. We thought we could try out the new life before selling our house to buy a new one there. My sister and her boyfriend made the announcement that they were expecting last Tuesday, the day after my husband's interview. Not 30 minutes later, my husband called me. He was sloshed and he was crying and asking if it was true and if I knew. He called me a cruel liar for not telling him. He said it was so unfair. My sister's fiancé is a loser and he didn't deserve her. Her fiancé is a carpenter and my sister is a pediatrician, and he told me he needed to be alone for a while, so he switched off his phone. On Friday, he texted me that he didn't want to be with me anymore and that he didn't want to be in my daughter's life. He was sorry but couldn't do it anymore. He said if I agreed to free him from his responsibilities as a father, he will give me the house. I tried calling him, but he switched his phone off again. I cried all night. Yesterday morning, my sister called me to ask what's up. My husband has asked her to meet up with him because he wanted to tell her something that he couldn't say over the phone, that he was coming over on Monday to see her. She asked me what was going on, but I was too tired to tell her anything. She and her fiancé are coming over today, and I will probably need to tell her everything now. And this is the final update. My sister was here and I told her everything. I got help from showing her parts of what I have written here because honestly I'm too tired to go into details about what I've been going through all of these weeks. I told her that my husband was going to call asking to meet her, probably to tell her that he loved her, or maybe something more sinister sister, so she needed to stay away from him. Her fiance was on the edge of his seat with anger. My sister was just crying and apologizing and trying to hug and stroke my hair. I hated her touch, but I don't know why. I know nothing is her fault. I told my sister that now that I warned her, I want to be on my own for a while and I don't want to be in contact with any of them. I have been thinking about moving to another city. There's a small town that one of my best high school friends lives in after getting married. It's up north and everything is bigger and better and cheaper. I can easily find a small rental unit until the divorce is final and I can easily get a job there. If I can manage a place there, I can give birth up there with zero stress. I've texted my husband that I've told my sister everything and that both her and her fiance are not happy. He called me an hour later. He apologized and told me that he didn't mean to freak her out. He just wanted to see her and say goodbye, but that he wouldn't bother her if she felt scared. He's still the same man and wouldn't let anything happen to her. He didn't ask about me or my baby. He's staying in the new place and he's starting his new job in September. He thought he would come back to say goodbye before moving to his new city permanently. My sister texted me later that she loved me and would stay out of my way if that's what I wanted, but to please not go through with my plans to move because she needs me and she would do anything to make it up to me. I didn't answer. I hate it when she's so perfect and kind. F off. So am I the jerk for how I feel about my sister, even though this was my husband's fault? This is a gut-wrenching experience that most people will never have to live through. What the husband did violated the sanctity of their marriage, destroyed her trust, scared the sister, and enraged the fiance all in one fell swoop. You really have to not care about the outcome of the person you're with in order to drop all this on them after getting them pregnant. The husband's explanation would probably be something along the lines of, I couldn't help it. This is how I feel about the sister. I can't control it. That might be true, but from the way he's acting, this is not a new feeling. It just didn't come out of nowhere. He's had this brewing in him for who knows how long, years probably. So why get the original poster here, the wife pregnant, and then essentially abandon her when he doesn't get what he wants? It's so cruel and heartless. And not to mention the collateral damage that it's going to leave between the sister and the OP here. The fact that when he made that final phone call that he didn't care at all about the baby or the OP, he just wanted to emphasize that he's still the same man and he wouldn't let anything happen to the sister. Not to the OP, not to the baby, but to the sister. Says all you need to know about his character when it comes to this whole situation. And basically the whole thing earlier is all just a lie. He's saying, I'll do everything in my power to prove that this marriage will work and I'll be dedicated to you and only you. And then even suggest moving to a different city as if that would suddenly fix anything. But then immediately falls apart as soon as he finds out that the sister is also pregnant. The OP is in a very vulnerable position. She's married to this guy and now she's pregnant by him. And then he does this. Which is sad, because what could the OP have even done to have prevented this whole thing? I don't think anything. It wasn't her choice and she was kept in the dark. But if this was you and the person you were married to randomly just told you that they were in love with your sibling, how would you react? Let me know down below in jerk or not a jerk and why. Am I the jerk for complaining about getting an expired breakfast bar for Employee Appreciation Day? I have worked for my employer for 3 years. This is not some rinky-dink mom and pop place. Our CEO made $16 million last year, and you would absolutely know the company if I named it. Today, I came into an email from upper management saying Happy Employee Appreciation Day and inviting us to share photos of our various local celebrations with our area leaders. It was then that I realized that the Kind Bar, 2 months expired, that had been waiting for me on my desk was my branch manager's offering as her appreciation for my hard work. How embarrassing, right? She must not have noticed that it was expired. Only, this is the second time she's gifted us expired food. Last year's employee appreciation was a box of expired Nutri-Grain bars left on the break room table. The prior year, she expressed her appreciation with a homemade fried egg sandwich in a Ziploc bag for each of us. Other branches have lunch brought in, get balloons and decorations, or even handwritten cards saying that they are appreciated by their managers. Our branch has a ton of turnover, and I have expressed to my boss's boss that my opinion is we lose so many people because my manager does not appreciate the hard work her employees put in. The job is very stressful at times. Plus, working with the public through 2020 was hard on everyone. Our branch performs well in sales and is operationally sound. We aren't perfect, but we work really hard. The branch consists of 2 part-time employees and 3 full-time employees, including my manager. I snapped a photo of my expired gift and sent it to my boss's boss with a note saying that I don't feel that it was a gift our corporate office would be proud of. I expressed my desire for our branch to be successful successful, and that this was a prime example of why we can't seem to keep employees. Am I the jerk for complaining to upper management about my gift? Should I have just trashed it and kept my opinions to myself? If I had to guess, the boss in this situation probably isn't getting a budget to get these gifts. She's probably buying these gifts out of her own pocket. It's probably a situation where corporate says, hey, do something for your employees, but we're not going to give you any money for it and we're not going to give you any time to do it. You still got to finish all your work, but still get this done. And this is the outcome of that. If that's not the case, then it's a different story. But if money is the limiting factor here, I think the boss can still fulfill the employee appreciation by writing the notes or doing something that doesn't cost money but costs time. It's just going to be a matter of, is she able to do that outside of work if she's not able to do it while she is at work? But no matter the reason, I can understand why the OP is disappointed, because they're hyping her up saying, it's Employee Appreciation Day, here's an egg sandwich. It's Employee Appreciation Day, here's expired food. I definitely get it, but let me know how you would handle the situation down below. Would you say anything to upper management, or would you keep it between you and the manager yourself? And jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for not taking my child on vacation? I'm a 49-year-old male and I have a child who's 17 who has to get a very much needed medical surgery in a month or two. For privacy reasons, I won't go into detail of what it is, but trust me when I say that it's serious. The medical bills costed us a lot of money, to the point that we had to dip into our vacation funds in order to pay for it. But we paid for it nonetheless. We have a trip coming up to go on a family vacation to Los Angeles. We do this every year, it's basically tradition, and we want to have a separate fund so we can all do what we want while there. Basically fun money, as well as basic necessities. Unfortunately, in order to pay for our child's surgery, we had to dip into their vacation funds, and now we can't afford to bring them with us. I can't cancel this trip because that wouldn't be fair on their younger brother who's 11, and my wife who's 47, who have been looking forward to this trip all year since we couldn't go last year. I want them to come with us, but we've already spent the money on medical bills, and in my opinion, that's more important than a family vacation, and they should be more grateful. My child got upset when I told them this, and they haven't spoken to me much since, which I think is a little bratty, but I don't really know what else to do. Like I said, I can't cancel this trip since it wouldn't be fair to the rest of the family, but we've already spent their portion of the funds on this upcoming surgery and can no longer afford to support them on this trip. Am I the jerk? This is really twisted. Does the dad not understand here that the 17-year-old kid didn't choose to want to have medical surgery that they absolutely need? Nobody on earth would ever choose to have that be the option they want. And now that kid is being penalized, who's sick and needs this surgery, and the rest of his family is going to go on a vacation without him? But the dad feels that it's justified because they've used enough money from this specific kid's vacation funds on his much needed medical surgery. I can't even wrap my brain around this. There was a quote that got posted on this that pretty much perfectly sums it up. You had the choice between Disneyland and a new heart, Ricky, and you chose the new heart. No take backsies. Because that's pretty much a situation here. If it's life-threatening, what other choice did the kid have? And what family has a vacation fund that's broken up into a fund that's for each member of the family individually? That doesn't even make sense. It's really sad how cruel some parents can be, and then it's normalized between both of the parents because the husband probably told the wife what he was thinking, the wife didn't call him out and just went along with it, or maybe vice versa. But either way, they've created their own echo chamber of, yeah, this is normal. Let's penalize our child who has a life-threatening condition by saying that they used up all of their vacation fund. But that didn't affect our vacation fund because we have a separate fund for us. This is a sad situation. I feel bad for this kid, and these are bad parents. But maybe you see their point of view. Let me know down below in jerk or not a jerk and why.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.